I'm Daniel Foster, 38, a software architect who believed in forever. After 12 years of marriage and 4 beautiful children, I discovered my wife was pregnant with twins, but I'd had a vasectomy 3 years ago. The betrayal didn't just shatter our marriage. It exposed a web of lies that had been unraveling for longer than I wanted to admit. What happened next wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting my children and reclaiming the life I'd built with my own hands. If you've ever had to choose between the family you thought you had and the truth you couldn't ignore, this story is for you. Subscribe to hear how one impossible choice led to the most honest version of myself I'd ever been. Let me take you back to how it all began. Because context matters when your world falls apart. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Ohio, the kind of place where people worked hard, kept their heads down, and hoped their kids would do better than they did. My parents divorced when I was 8, and I spent my childhood shuttling between 2 households that never quite felt like home. Maybe that's why I was so determined to build something stable, something lasting. Maybe that's why the betrayal cut so deep. I put myself through state college working nights at a tech support call center, graduated with a degree in computer science, and landed my first real job at a software firm in Columbus. I was 24, ambitious and hungry to prove that I could build a life that looked nothing like my childhood. I worked 70-hour weeks, saved aggressively, and by 26, I'd moved to a better position at a larger company with actual career prospects. That's where I met Rebecca. She was 25, working in the events department, coordinating company conferences and client appreciation dinners. She had this energy about her, bright, social, always laughing. She could light up a room just by walking into it. I was the quiet, analytical type, more comfortable with code than conversation, and she seemed fascinated by that. She'd seek me out at company events, ask about my projects, lean in close when I explained technical concepts she probably didn't care about. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. She wore a blue dress that matched her eyes, and I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We talked for 4 hours. She told me about growing up as an only child in a picture-perfect suburban family, how her parents had high expectations, how she'd always felt pressure to be perfect. I told her about my fractured childhood, my determination to build something better. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We're going to build something amazing together," she said. I believed her. We dated for 10 months before I proposed. It wasn't a grand gesture, just the 2 of us on a weekend trip to the lake, sunrise over the water, a simple ring I'd saved 3 months to afford. She cried and said yes, and I felt like I'd finally found the home I'd been searching for my entire life. We married in a small ceremony with 50 guests. Her parents, Linda and Robert, paid for most of it, which meant they controlled most of it. Linda had opinions about everything, the flowers, the music, the guest list, even my choice of groomsmen. Rebecca navigated it all with practiced ease, soothing her mother while squeezing my hand under the table during planning meetings. I should have recognized that dynamic then, the way Rebecca bent to her mother's will, but I was too in love to see it. Our first years together were good. We bought a modest starter home in a decent suburb, both working full-time, talking about our future over wine on Friday nights. Rebecca wanted children right away. I wanted to wait, to build financial security first, but she was persuasive. "Life doesn't wait for the perfect moment," she'd say. "We'll figure it out together." Maya was born when I was 29. The moment they placed her in my arms, tiny and perfect and utterly dependent, something shifted in me. I understood finally what it meant to love someone more than yourself. I worked harder, took on extra projects, because now I had someone counting on me. Josh followed 2 years later, then Emma 2 years after that. With each child, our life grew fuller and more chaotic. Rebecca cut back to part-time work, focusing on the kids and the home. I became the primary breadwinner, and I wore that responsibility proudly. This was what I'd wanted: a real family, stability, purpose. By the time Cooper was born, 4 years ago, we had everything I'd dreamed of. A beautiful home I'd worked to afford, 4 healthy children, a career trajectory that promised security. I looked at our family Christmas photo from that year, all 6 of us in matching sweaters, smiling at the camera, and felt profound gratitude. That photo is still on our mantle. I can't bring myself to take it down even now, because it represents the last moment before I understood that everything I thought I knew was a carefully constructed lie. After Cooper's birth, Rebecca and I had a long conversation about our family size. 4 kids were expensive. Daycare costs alone were crushing. We were both exhausted. She from managing 4 young children, me from working long hours to support them all. We agreed we were done. Our family was complete. The vasectomy was my idea, actually. I researched it thoroughly, consulted with my doctor, understood the procedure and recovery. Rebecca supported the decision. "It makes sense," she said. 4 is perfect. We're complete. I had the procedure on a Friday, spent the weekend recovering on the couch while Rebecca managed the kids. She brought me ice packs and pain medication, kissed my forehead, told me she loved me for being responsible. It hurt for a few days, then healed. Life returned to normal. I followed up diligently. The doctor had been clear. I needed to verify the procedure's success. I went back for the required tests, provided samples, waited for results. 0 sperm count. The procedure was successful. We were protected from any surprise pregnancies. That was 3 years ago. For the past year, maybe 18 months, I'd noticed small changes in Rebecca. Nothing dramatic, just subtle shifts that individually seemed insignificant. She was on her phone more, angling the screen away when I walked into a room. She started having more girls' nights, coming home late with wine on her breath and vague stories about where they'd been. She signed up for a gym membership and started going 3 times a week, always in full makeup, always looking radiant when she left. "I need something for myself," she explained when I asked about the sudden fitness interest. "I've spent years focused on everyone else. I need to feel like me again." I understood that. I supported it. I wanted her to be happy, to have outlets beyond our chaotic household. So I took the kids solo those evenings, managing dinner and bedtime routines, proud that I could give her that space. I noticed she'd bought new clothes, fitted workout gear, stylish casual outfits. Nothing extravagant, but definitely different from her usual mom uniform of yoga pants and oversized sweaters. She seemed lighter somehow, more energetic, laughing at her phone at random moments. "Just a funny meme," she'd say when I asked what was so amusing. There were late-night grocery runs that took 2 hours, weekend errands that stretched inexplicably long, a new perfume I didn't recognize. These were breadcrumbs, and I was too trusting, too busy, too convinced of our solid foundation to follow the trail. Then came the announcement. It was a Tuesday evening. Ordinary in every way until it wasn't. I'd just gotten home from work. The kids were scattered throughout the house, Maya doing homework at the kitchen table, Josh playing video games in the living room, Emma watching cartoons, Cooper napping. Rebecca was cooking dinner, humming along to music playing from her phone. She turned to me with this strange expression, nervous and excited at once, and said, "Daniel, I need to tell you something." I assumed it was about the kids' schedules, maybe a school event I'd forgotten. I was mentally running through my calendar when she said it. "I'm pregnant." The words didn't compute at first. I actually laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. But her face was serious, her hand moving to her stomach in that protective gesture pregnant women make. "That's not possible," I said slowly. "I had a vasectomy." "I know," she said, her voice bright with forced enthusiasm. "It's a miracle." The doctor said sometimes they can reverse themselves spontaneously. "It's rare, but it happens." "And Daniel, it's twins." The kitchen tilted. My vision narrowed. I gripped the counter for support as my mind raced through the impossible mathematics of what she was claiming. Spontaneous reversal. After 3 years, resulting in twins. Every instinct I had screamed that this wasn't medically possible. But I looked at my wife, the mother of my 4 children, my partner of 12 years, and a small, desperate part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to accept the miracle explanation, to avoid the truth that was already crystallizing in my mind. But I'm a software architect. I work in logic, in systems, in testing hypotheses against evidence, and the evidence was already telling me everything I needed to know. I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. That night, after dinner, after baths and bedtime stories and tucking 4 children into their beds, I sat alone in my home office with my laptop open. Rebecca had gone to bed early, claiming pregnancy fatigue. I'd kissed her forehead and told her to rest, playing the supportive husband while my mind churned with questions I couldn't yet voice. I started searching. Medical journals, urology websites, fertility forums, case studies. I needed to understand the statistical reality of what Rebecca was claiming. Spontaneous recanalization, that's the medical term for when the vas deferens, the tubes cut during a vasectomy, somehow reconnect on their own. I read everything I could find. The medical literature was clear. It happens, but it's extraordinarily rare. Most sources cited rates of less than 1%. And those cases typically occurred within the first few months after the procedure. Not 3 years later, I found a study from a reproductive health journal that tracked 10,000 vasectomy patients over 5 years. Spontaneous recanalization occurred in 0.03% of cases, 3 in 10,000. And almost all of those cases were detected within the first year through routine follow-up testing. I'd had those follow-up tests multiple times. Every single one confirmed zero sperm count. Then there was the twins factor. Even if, and this was a massive if, spontaneous recanalization had occurred, the likelihood of conceiving twins on the first ovulation cycle would be another statistical improbability layered on top of the first. Twin pregnancies occurred naturally in about 3% of all pregnancies. The mathematical odds of both events occurring together were infinitesimal. I pulled up my medical records. I still had the vasectomy confirmation letter from my urologist, Dr. Patterson. I'd saved all the documentation in a digital folder labeled Medical Daniel. The procedure date, the follow-up appointments, the test results, all of it confirming what I already knew. I was sterile. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling the foundation of my world cracking beneath me. The logical part of my brain, the part that solved problems through systematic analysis, was telling me the truth I didn't want to accept. But the part that had loved Rebecca for 12 years, that had built a life with her, that had stood beside her through 4 pregnancies and countless challenges, that part was screaming at me to find another explanation. Maybe there was a medical anomaly. Maybe I was the 1 in a million case. Maybe the tests had been wrong, all of them, consistently wrong for 3 years. Maybe, no, I was lying to myself, I knew it. Deep down, beneath the desperate rationalizations, I knew exactly what was happening. Rebecca was pregnant with someone else's children. She'd been unfaithful. The late nights, the phone secrecy, the new clothes and makeup, the mysterious happiness, it all made sense now. Terrible, devastating sense. I thought about confronting her immediately, waking her up, demanding the truth, refusing to accept the fairy tale about spontaneous reversal. But something stopped me. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe it was strategy. Or maybe I just wasn't ready to detonate our family in the middle of the night while our children slept peacefully in their beds. Instead, I made a different decision. I would gather facts. I would approach this the way I approached complex problems at work. Methodically, systematically, with evidence and documentation. If I was wrong, if there truly was some medical miracle, I'd look foolish, but at least I'd know. And if I was right, I'd need proof. For myself, for any legal proceedings, for the inevitable moment when I'd have to explain to our children why their family was falling apart. I opened a new document and started typing. Date, time, Rebecca's announcement, her explanation, my medical history. I'd create a timeline, track everything, build an undeniable picture of the truth. The next morning, I called Dr. Patterson's office. I told the receptionist I needed to speak with him about my vasectomy, that I had concerns about its effectiveness. She scheduled me for an appointment that afternoon. There'd been a cancellation. I told Rebecca I had a work meeting and left during lunch. Dr. Patterson was in his early 60s, experienced and direct. I explained the situation, showed him the dates of my procedure and follow-up tests, told him about Rebecca's pregnancy announcement. He listened without interruption, his expression professionally neutral. Mr. Foster, he said when I finished, I can order another sperm analysis if you'd like confirmation, but based on your testing history, spontaneous recanalization after 3 years with consistently negative tests is virtually impossible. Not difficult, not unlikely, impossible. The word hung in the air between us. So what she's claiming can't be true, I said. It wasn't a question. From a medical standpoint, no. The vasectomy was successful, and it remains successful. If your wife is pregnant, you are not the biological father. Hearing it stated so clinically, so definitively, should have devastated me. Instead, I felt an odd sense of relief. I wasn't losing my mind. The math did add up. The impossible story Rebecca had fed me was exactly that. Impossible. I want another test anyway, I said. For documentation. He nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. This wasn't about medical certainty anymore. It was about legal protection. He wrote the order, and I provided a sample before leaving the office. The results would take a few days, but I already knew what they'd show. I drove home through afternoon traffic, gripping the steering wheel, my thoughts spiraling. How long had this been going on? Who was he? Did I know him? Had she brought him into our home while I was at work and our children were at school? The questions multiplied faster than I could process them. When I pulled into our driveway, I sat in the car for a long moment, looking at our house. It was a good house. I'd worked hard to afford it, to give my family stability and comfort. Large windows, a well-maintained lawn, a basketball hoop over the garage door where I'd taught Josh to shoot. From the outside, it looked like everything I'd wanted it to be. But inside those walls, my wife was carrying another man's children and lying to my face about it. I thought about the vasectomy decision. How Rebecca had supported it, encouraged it even. Had she already been planning this? Had she wanted me to be sterile so she could pursue her affair without worrying about accidental pregnancy with me? The thought made me sick. Or had the affair started later, and the vasectomy just gave her convenient cover? She could get pregnant with her lover and claim miracle babies, knowing I'd have no medical basis to dispute it unless I pushed for testing. That's what she was counting on, I realized. She was counting on my love for her, my trust, my desire to believe the best. She thought I'd accept her story because questioning it would mean questioning everything about our marriage. She'd weaponized my devotion. I got out of the car and walked inside. Maya was at the kitchen table doing homework. Josh was upstairs in his room. I could hear Emma's voice from the playroom, narrating some elaborate game she was playing with her dolls. Cooper was probably napping. Rebecca was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up when I entered and smiled. "How was work?" "Fine," I said. The lie tasted bitter. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," she said, placing a hand on her still flat stomach. "But excited." "I know this is a shock, but I really think it's a blessing, Daniel. Maybe we're meant to have a bigger family." I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed genuinely happy, glowing even. Was she that good at lying? Or had she convinced herself that her version of reality was true? Was she so deep in her deception that she'd forgotten what the truth even looked like? "We should probably tell the kids soon," she continued. "They'll be thrilled to have baby siblings." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Every word out of her mouth was another layer of betrayal. She was already planning how to integrate her affair babies into our family, how to make us all complicit in her lie. But I had proof now. Medical certainty, Dr. Patterson's clinical assessment. And soon I'd have updated test results that would remove any shadow of doubt. The question was no longer whether Rebecca had betrayed me. The question was what I was going to do about it. I became a detective in my own marriage. It felt surreal, like I was a character in someone else's story. But the alternative was accepting a lie I couldn't live with. If I was going to protect my children and protect myself, I needed documentation. I needed proof that would stand up in court, that would justify my decisions when the inevitable confrontation came. Our cell phones were on a shared family plan under my name. I'd set it up years ago for the convenience and cost savings, never imagining I'd use it to investigate my wife's infidelity. On my lunch break the next day, I logged into the account and requested detailed records for the past 6 months. The carrier emailed them within an hour. 100-page PDFs listing every call, text, and data usage on both our lines. I opened Rebecca's records first. My hands were shaking. Part of me still hoped I'd find nothing unusual, that somehow this was all a terrible misunderstanding. That hope died quickly. One number appeared over and over. Not saved as a contact in our shared digital life, just 10 digits repeated hundreds of times. Calls lasting 5 minutes, 20 minutes, once a full hour, and 12 minutes. Text messages exchanged at all hours. Early morning before I woke, midday when she should have been managing the kids, late at night after I'd gone to bed. I started tracking the patterns. The calls increased dramatically about 18 months ago, which aligned with when I'd first noticed changes in her behavior. There were clusters around her girls' nights. Multiple calls before she left, during the evening, after she came home. The gym visits showed the same pattern. Every time she claimed to be somewhere innocent, there were communications with this number. I counted. Over 300 calls in 6 months, at least twice that many text messages. This wasn't a casual friendship. This was constant contact, an ongoing relationship running parallel to our marriage. I reverse-searched the number online but got no results. Whoever it was, they weren't stupid enough to have their number publicly listed. That would take more digging, but I had other avenues to explore first. Rebecca's car was her personal domain. I rarely drove it, rarely even sat in it. The next evening, while she was inside making dinner, I went out to the garage with my phone and started documenting. I opened the glove compartment first. Registration, insurance cards, an owner's manual, nothing unusual. Then the center console. That's where I found the receipts. They were folded and tucked beneath CDs she never listened to. Old napkins, loose change. Maybe she'd forgotten about them, or maybe she thought I'd never look. 3 hotel receipts over the past 4 months. Not cheap places either. Mid-range hotels in suburbs about 30 minutes from our home. Far enough for discretion, close enough for convenience. Each receipt was for a king room, checked in for 3 to 5 hours during afternoon time slots. The dates corresponded with days Rebecca had told me she was doing various errands. Furniture shopping, visiting her mother, meeting old college friends. I photographed each receipt, hands steady now, the initial shock giving way to cold determination. I checked the trunk. Nothing incriminating there. Under the seats, I found more evidence of a hidden life. A lipstick shade I'd never seen her wear. A men's cologne sample card, a restaurant receipt for 2 expensive entrees and a bottle of wine at a steakhouse downtown. I'd been home with the kids that night, eating chicken nuggets and managing homework chaos while she'd told me she was at a work event. I photographed everything, created a cloud folder with today's date, and uploaded all the images. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Back inside, I logged into our joint credit card account. We had excellent credit, organized finances, complete transparency, or so I'd thought. I started going through statements month by month looking for patterns. There, charges I'd glanced past, assuming they were legitimate. A coffee shop I didn't recognize, visited repeatedly in the early afternoon. A wine bar with charges for 2 cocktails, never just one. Restaurant bills that seemed too high for a solo lunch. Flower purchases I'd never received flowers for. She'd been hiding in plain sight, spending our money on her affair, counting on my trust and my busy schedule to keep me from looking too closely. I downloaded 12 months of statements and highlighted every suspicious charge. The total wasn't enormous, maybe $3,000, but it wasn't the money that gutted me. It was the calculation behind it. She'd been strategic, never spending so much that I'd notice, spreading the charges out, mixing them with legitimate purchases. That night, after the kids were asleep and Rebecca was in the shower, I looked through her nightstand drawer. I felt invasive doing it, like I was violating her privacy, which was almost funny given what she'd been doing. But I needed to be thorough. I found a birthday card tucked in the back, unsigned, with a generic romantic message about love and appreciation. The handwriting wasn't mine. There was a cheap bracelet I'd never seen her wear, silver with a small heart charm. A movie ticket stub from a film I'd wanted to see, but she'd claimed had no interest in. Apparently she'd seen it with someone else. Each item was a small betrayal, a tiny piece of a life she'd been living without me. Together, they painted a devastating picture. I also found a receipt from a drugstore 2 months ago. Plan B emergency contraception. My stomach dropped. She'd been taking precautions with her lover, protecting herself from an unwanted pregnancy with him. But those precautions had apparently failed, or maybe they'd stopped using them. Either way, she was now carrying twins that she was trying to pass off as mine. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. Part of me wished I could unknow all of it, go back to ignorant trust. But that door had closed the moment she announced her impossible pregnancy. I needed legal guidance. The next morning, I made an appointment with a family law attorney. I told Rebecca I had a client meeting. She kissed me goodbye, told me to have a good day, smiled at me with the same face that had been lying to me for at least 18 months. The attorney's name was Patricia Hendricks, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own difficult divorce. Her office was professional but warm, designed to put distressed clients at ease. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally taking notes. Her expression sympathetic but practical. "Mr. Foster," she said when I finished, "you have a strong case for divorce on grounds of adultery. The medical evidence regarding your vasectomy is compelling. The phone records and receipts establish a pattern of deception. What are your goals here?" "I want primary custody of my children," I said immediately. "All 4 of them. They're 11, 9, 6, and 4. They need stability. They need a parent who's actually present. Tell me about your wife's involvement with the children," she said. I thought about it honestly. She's been increasingly absent, more focused on herself. The older 2, Maya and Josh, have noticed. I've taken over most of the hands-on parenting over the past year. Homework, activities, bedtime routines. I work from home 2 days a week specifically to be available for them. Patricia nodded. "That's good for your case. Document everything. Your involvement, her absences, the children's routines. Keep a detailed calendar. We'll want to show that you're the primary caregiver and that the children's best interests are served by remaining in your custody." "What about the house?" I asked. "We bought it 5 years ago, but I provided the down payment from savings I had before we married. Both names are on the deed now. We'll need to review all marital assets and determine equitable distribution. Given the adultery and the fact that you've been the primary breadwinner, we can argue for favorable terms. Start gathering financial documents, bank statements, retirement accounts, investment records, everything. Over the next 2 hours." Patricia outlined the legal process, the timeline, the likely outcomes. She was realistic but encouraging. "Yes, this would be difficult. Yes, Rebecca would probably fight. But I had strong evidence. I was the more stable parent, and the court would prioritize the children's welfare. One more thing," she said as I was leaving. "Open a separate bank account in your name only. Start redirecting your paycheck there. Make sure you have access to funds that she can't drain or claim are joint marital property. You need to protect yourself financially. I did exactly that. That afternoon, I opened an account at a different bank, submitted the paperwork to have my paycheck deposited there starting with the next pay period. I transferred half of our joint savings to the new account, my legal right. Patricia had confirmed, and left the other half for Rebecca. I made copies of everything. Property deeds, titles to both cars, insurance policies, tax returns for the past 5 years, my employment contract, Rebecca's part-time income records. I stored the originals in a safety deposit box at the new bank and kept digital copies in an encrypted cloud folder. Each action felt like preparing for war, which I suppose it was. But I wasn't the one who'd started this conflict. I was just finally recognizing it existed. That evening, Rebecca asked if I'd thought about how to tell the kids about the pregnancy. Maybe this weekend, she suggested. We could make it special, like an announcement dinner. I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for 12 years, who was so committed to her lie that she wanted to involve our children in it. Let's wait a bit, I said. Give it a few more weeks. Make sure everything's progressing well. She agreed easily, and I wondered if she was relieved by the delay. Maybe some part of her knew this couldn't last, that the truth would eventually surface. Or maybe she really believed she could pull this off, that I'd never question her, that love and trust would blind me forever. But I'd stopped being blind, and I was no longer the trusting husband she'd counted on. I was someone else now, someone calculating, strategic, determined to protect what mattered most. My children deserved better than a house built on lies. And so did I. With the legal groundwork in motion and evidence accumulating, my focus shifted to what mattered most. My children. I'd been so consumed with uncovering Rebecca's betrayal that I hadn't fully considered how much they'd already been affected by her increasing absence and emotional distance. I started really watching them, paying attention to the subtle signs I'd been too distracted to notice before. Maya, my eldest at 11, had always been mature for her age. She was the responsible one, the helper, the child who anticipated needs before anyone asked. I'd thought it was just her personality, a natural inclination toward caretaking. Now I wondered if it was a response to necessity. I noticed how she'd take over when Rebecca was distracted or absent. She'd make sure Emma brushed her teeth, help Cooper find his shoes, remind Josh to pack his lunch. She moved through these tasks with quiet efficiency, never complaining. But there was something sad about watching an 11-year-old shoulder responsibilities that should have fallen to her mother. One evening, while cleaning her room, something I'd been doing more often since Rebecca's gym schedule had expanded, I found her journal on her nightstand. I shouldn't have read it. I knew that even as I picked it up, even as I opened to a random page. But I needed to understand what was happening in her world. The entries were dated, written in her careful handwriting, decorated with small doodles in the margins. Most were typical preteen observations about school, friends, minor dramas. But some stopped me cold. Mom missed my band concert again, one entry read. She said she had to work late, but I heard her on the phone laughing with someone. Dad came, though. He always comes. Another, from 3 weeks ago. I think something's wrong with Mom and Dad. They smile at each other, but it doesn't reach their eyes anymore. Mom is gone a lot. Dad looks sad when he thinks we're not watching. I'm scared to ask what's happening because what if asking makes it real? And then most recently, Dad looked really upset today. Mom told him something in the kitchen and his whole face changed. He tried to hide it when he saw me watching, but I could tell something was really wrong. I wish I could fix whatever is broken. I closed the journal carefully, exactly as I'd found it, and sat on the edge of Maya's bed feeling like the worst father in the world. She'd been carrying this weight, these observations and fears, and I hadn't known. I'd been so focused on my own pain and on gathering evidence that I hadn't protected her from the fallout that was already happening. Josh was showing stress differently. His third-grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had sent home a note the week before expressing concern about his behavior. He'd been withdrawn in class, not participating in group activities, his usually solid grades slipping. I'd mentioned it to Rebecca, who'd dismissed it as a phase. He's 9, she'd said. Boys get moody, but it wasn't a phase. I started noticing the signs at home, too. Josh was quicker to anger, snapping at his siblings over small things. He spent more time alone in his room. When I asked how school was, he'd shrug and say fine without making eye contact. One night, helping him with math homework, I tried to create an opening for conversation. You seem a little down lately, buddy. Everything okay? He kept his eyes on his worksheet. Where does Mom go all the time? The question hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? She's always leaving. Gym, shopping, meeting friends. She used to be home more. Now she's just gone. He looked up at me then, his expression a mixture of confusion and hurt that no 9-year-old should have to feel. Did we do something wrong? No, I said firmly, pulling him into a hug. You did nothing wrong. None of you did. Sometimes adults have things they need to work through, but that's not on you kids. That's never on you. He nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel the tension in his small frame. He didn't believe me, not entirely, and I couldn't blame him. Children sense dishonesty even when they can't articulate what they're feeling. Emma, my 6-year-old, was the most vocal about her feelings. She'd always been expressive, wearing her emotions openly, and lately those emotions had centered on anxiety about separation. She'd started having trouble at bedtime, calling for us repeatedly, needing reassurance that we weren't leaving. Mommy, you're coming back, right? She'd ask when Rebecca left for the gym or errands. Of course. Sweetie, Rebecca would say, kissing her forehead without really looking at her. Already mentally wherever she was actually going, Emma had started having nightmares. She'd come into our bedroom at 2 or 3 in the morning, climbing into bed between us, whispering that she'd had a scary dream. I'd hold her until she fell back asleep, feeling her gradually relax against me, and wonder what fears were manifesting in her subconscious. Her kindergarten teacher had mentioned at a recent conference that Emma seemed more clingy than earlier in the year, reluctant to separate for school drop-off, frequently asking to call home during the day. Is everything okay at home? The teacher had asked gently. Sometimes children respond to stress in the household even when parents think they're hiding it well. I'd assured her everything was fine, but we both knew it was a lie. Cooper, at 4, was too young to fully understand what was happening, but he felt it nonetheless. He'd become more attached to me specifically, reaching for me instead of Rebecca, crying when I left for work, asking when Daddy would be home. Rebecca seemed hurt by his preference, which almost made me laugh. Did she really not see the connection between her absence and his attachment to the parent who was actually present? I started documenting everything. Not just the legal evidence of Rebecca's affair, but the practical reality of our family life. I kept a detailed calendar noting which parent handled which responsibility. Drop-offs, pickups, homework help, meal preparation, bedtime routines, doctor's appointments, school conferences, extracurricular activities. The pattern was undeniable. Over the past 6 months, I'd handled roughly 75% of the hands-on parenting. Rebecca was physically present in the house more than I was. I still went to an office 3 days a week, but presence wasn't the same as engagement. She was distracted, on her phone, mentally elsewhere even when her body occupied the same room as our children. I made note of Maya's band concert that Rebecca missed, Josh's soccer game where she arrived 40 minutes late and left early, Emma's kindergarten performance where she didn't show up at all, claiming a last-minute work obligation that I later confirmed didn't exist. These weren't isolated incidents. They were patterns. Patricia Hendricks had told me this documentation would be crucial for the custody case. Courts want to see who's been the primary caregiver, she'd explained. Who knows the children's schedules, their teachers' names, their friends, their medical history. Who shows up consistently. I knew all those things. I knew that Maya's favorite subject was English, and she was struggling with pre-algebra. I knew Josh's best friend was Tyler, and his soccer coach was Mr. Rodriguez. I knew Emma was allergic to strawberries, and Cooper was afraid of dogs but loved cats. I knew their favorite foods, their bedtime preferences, what songs soothed them when they were upset. I knew these things because I'd been paying attention, because I was there, because being their father wasn't something I did around the edges of my real life. It was my real life. Rebecca knew these things too once. But lately, I wasn't sure she could answer basic questions about our children's daily lives. She'd checked out emotionally long before her body followed to hotel rooms and secret meetings. The kids deserved better. They deserved a parent who was fully present, who prioritized their needs, who showed up consistently and reliably. They deserved honesty, stability, and a home that wasn't built on lies. I couldn't give them back their intact family. That was already gone, destroyed by choices Rebecca had made. But I could give them one parent who was committed to their well-being above everything else. I could give them the truth, age-appropriately delivered. I could give them consistency and security. I could show them that love wasn't just a feeling, it was action, presence, sacrifice, commitment. And that's exactly what I intended to do. I'd been gathering evidence for 2 weeks when I decided the time had come. I had the phone records, the receipts, the medical documentation, the financial records. I had a lawyer and a plan. Most importantly, I had absolute certainty about what was happening and what needed to happen next. I couldn't continue living this lie. Every day that passed, every morning I woke up beside Rebecca. Every dinner we shared as a family, Every time she talked about the pregnancy and our miracle babies, it was eroding something fundamental in me. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who smiled and nodded while knowing the complete truth. I had to end it. I chose a Tuesday evening, deliberately ordinary. The kids had all been fed, bathed, and tucked into bed. Maya and Josh were in their rooms, theoretically doing homework, but more likely on their tablets. Emma and Cooper were asleep. The house was quiet. Rebecca was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, humming to herself. She seemed content, relaxed even. Why wouldn't she be? From her perspective, her plan was working perfectly. I was playing the supportive husband, asking about her prenatal appointments, discussing baby names, never questioning the impossible story she'd constructed. I pulled out my laptop and printed everything I'd compiled. The phone records, 50 pages highlighting that one recurring number, the hotel receipts, the credit card statements with suspicious charges circled in red, Dr. Patterson's letter confirming my vasectomy was intact and successful. I organized them in a folder and brought them to the kitchen table. "Rebecca," I said, my voice calm and steady. "We need to talk. Can you sit down?" She glanced over, caught something in my tone. Her expression flickered, concerned caution before she smiled. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "Sit down," I repeated. She closed the dishwasher and joined me at the table, wiping her hands on a towel. "You're scaring me, Daniel." "What's wrong?" I opened the folder and placed the first document in front of her. The phone bill, with that number highlighted in yellow throughout 50 pages. "What is this?" she asked, but her voice had already changed. The casual confidence was gone. "Your phone records for the past 6 months. 347 calls to one number. Over 600 text messages, all to the same person." I kept my voice level, factual. "Who is he, Rebecca?" Her face went pale. She stared at the pages, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Finally, she said, "You went through my phone records. They're on our shared account. I have every legal right to access them." I placed another document on the table. "Hotel receipts. 3 different visits over the past 4 months. All during hours when you told me you were shopping or meeting friends." "Daniel, I can explain." "Please do." "I'd love to hear the explanation for checking into hotels in the middle of the afternoon." She was breathing faster now, her hands trembling slightly. "Those aren't what you think. I needed space sometimes, time alone to think. Being a mother is overwhelming, and I just needed to get away." "By yourself?" I placed the restaurant receipt on top of the others. "This dinner for 2 cost $180. "Who were you eating with?" Tears were forming in her eyes. "You're twisting everything. This is about trust, Daniel. You're going through my things, tracking my movements like I'm some kind of criminal. You still haven't answered the question." My calm was unsettling her more than anger would have. "Who is he?" "There is no he. You're being paranoid, controlling. This is about you not trusting me." I placed Dr. Patterson's letter on the table. "This is confirmation from my urologist that my vasectomy is intact and fully effective. 0 sperm count, verified 3 weeks ago. So let's talk about your pregnancy, Rebecca. Let's talk about these miracle twins." The color drained from her face completely. She looked at the letter, then at me, and I watched her scramble for a response, cycling through possible explanations, calculating which lie might work. The doctor said spontaneous recanalization has a 0.03% occurrence rate, almost always within the first year, and I've had multiple tests confirming sterility. I leaned forward. "You're pregnant, but not with my children. So I'll ask one more time, who is he?" "You're being cruel." She was crying now, real tears, voice breaking. "I'm pregnant and scared, and you're attacking me instead of supporting me. Supporting you would require believing you. I don't." I pulled out the paternity test kit I'd purchased, still sealed in its box, and placed it on the table between us. "Take the test. Prove me wrong. If these are my children, I'll apologize for everything." She stared at the box like it was a bomb. "How dare you? How dare you ask me to prove that my children are yours? Do you know how insulting that is? How degrading? If you have nothing to hide, take the test." "No, I won't let you treat me like this." "This is emotional abuse, Daniel. You're being controlling and suspicious and making me feel like I've done something wrong when I haven't." The gaslighting was textbook. Deflect, accuse, play victim. Make me question my own reality. Make this about my behavior instead of hers. Maybe it had worked before, in smaller ways, but it wouldn't work now. "I spoke with a lawyer," I said quietly. "I've documented everything. The phone calls, the hotels, the financial irregularities. I have medical proof that these children aren't mine. I'm filing for divorce and I'm seeking primary custody of our 4 children." The words hung in the air between us. Rebecca's tears stopped abruptly. Her expression shifted. Panic, anger, calculation passing across her features in rapid succession. "You can't do that," she whispered. "You can't take my children. They're my children. You've been absent, distracted, prioritizing your affair over their needs for at least 18 months. I have documentation of every missed event, every time I handled their care while you were supposedly at the gym or running errands." I stood up, gathering the papers back into the folder. "I've opened a separate bank account. My paychecks are being redirected there. I've consulted with Patricia Hendricks. You'll be served with divorce papers within the week. Daniel, please." She stood too, reaching for me. "Please, let's talk about this. Let's work this out. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever you need. What I need is honesty. And you're still not giving me that." Okay, fine. Yes, I've been seeing someone. But it's over, Daniel. I swear it's over. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake, and I'll end it completely. Please don't do this. Think about the kids. Think about our family. I am thinking about the kids. That's the only reason I'm handling this calmly instead of... I stopped, took a breath. They deserve a parent who's present, who's honest, who prioritizes them above everything else. I do prioritize them. Really? When was Maya's last band concert? She opened her mouth, closed it. I don't remember exactly. 2 weeks ago. You missed it. Said you had to work late. I checked with your supervisor. You left at 3:30 that day. I kept going, each fact a hammer blow. What's Josh's teacher's name? Mrs. Thompson? Mrs. Patterson, what's Emma's favorite color? Pink. Purple. She's told you at least 20 times. What time does Cooper's daycare close? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because she didn't know these basic details about our children's lives. She'd been so consumed with her affair, so focused on her own desires that she'd stopped being present for the people who needed her most. The twins aren't mine, I said flatly. You know it, I know it. The only question left is whether you'll admit it or continue lying until a paternity test forces the truth. Rebecca sank back into her chair, crying again, but these tears felt different, more real, less performative. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. I didn't mean to get pregnant. We were careful, but then, who is he? I asked again. She was quiet for a long moment, wrestling with how much to admit. Finally, so softly I almost didn't hear. Marcus. Marcus Webb. He works with me. So there it was. The truth finally. A name to attach to the phone number, the hotel receipts, the restaurant bills. Marcus Webb. The man who'd been sleeping with my wife, who'd gotten her pregnant, who'd been part of destroying our family. Is he married? I asked. She nodded miserably. Children? Another nod. 2 teenagers. So it wasn't just our family he'd helped destroy. There was a whole other group of innocent people whose lives were about to implode. Marcus Webb's wife, whoever she was about to discover the same truth I had. Does he know about the pregnancy? Yes. And what does he plan to do about it? I don't know. Her voice was small, defeated. We haven't talked about it much. He's scared. His wife doesn't know. He doesn't want to lose his family. The hypocrisy was staggering. He didn't want to lose his family, but he'd had no problem helping Rebecca destroy ours. I felt a sudden, unexpected sympathy for his wife, this woman I'd never met who was about to have her world shattered the way mine had been. You need to leave, I said. Not tonight, I don't want to wake the kids. But tomorrow, you need to pack a bag and stay somewhere else while we work out the legal details. Daniel, please. There's nothing left to say, Rebecca. You made your choices. Now we both have to live with the consequences. I left her sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal, and went upstairs to what had been our bedroom. I'd sleep there tonight, maintaining normalcy for the children's sake. But tomorrow, everything would change. As I lay in the dark, listening to Rebecca crying downstairs, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. The worst part hadn't been the betrayal itself. It had been living with the knowledge of it while pretending everything was fine. Now the truth was out. The confrontation I'd been dreading was done. What came next would be difficult, painful, messy, but at least it would be honest. And after 18 months of living in Rebecca's web of lies, honesty felt like oxygen after drowning. I closed my eyes, exhausted but certain I'd made the right choice. For myself, yes. But more importantly, for Maya, Josh, Emma, and Cooper. They deserved better than a family built on deception. And I was going to make sure they got it. The morning after the confrontation, Rebecca left early. I heard her moving around downstairs at 6, packing a bag, her movements hurried and quiet. She didn't say goodbye to the children, didn't leave a note. Just gone when they woke up, which made the breakfast routine easier in some ways and harder in others. Where's Mom? Emma asked, looking around the kitchen. She had to leave early for work, I said, which wasn't technically a lie. I wasn't ready to have the bigger conversation yet. I needed more information first, needed to understand the full scope of what we were dealing with. After dropping the kids at school and daycare, I went home and opened my laptop. Marcus Webb. Now that I had a name, I could learn everything about the man who'd been sleeping with my wife. A simple Google search revealed his LinkedIn profile first. Marcus Webb, 42, marketing director at Stellar Events, the same company where Rebecca worked part-time coordinating events. His profile showed a polished professional headshot, handsome in a conventional way, graying at the temples, expensive suit, confident smile. He'd been with the company for 8 years before Rebecca started working there 5 years ago. His Facebook profile was semi-public, enough for me to see the basics. Married to Sarah Webb for 15 years. 2 children, a daughter, 14, and a son, 12. His cover photo showed the 4 of them on a beach somewhere, all sun-tanned and smiling, the picture of family happiness. The same illusion we'd been projecting to the world. I scrolled through his posts. They were sparse, mostly company announcements, occasional shares of articles about marketing trends, nothing personal. But the photos told a different story. There were images from company events, and in several of them, I could see Rebecca in the background or standing near Marcus. One photo from a company holiday party 6 months ago showed them standing closer than colleagues typically would, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing. I'd been at home that night with the kids. Rebecca had told me the party was mandatory, that it would be awkward to bring a spouse, that she'd be home by 10. She'd come in after midnight, smelling of wine and cologne that wasn't mine, and I'd been too tired from managing 4 children's bedtime routines to question it. I found Marcus's home address through a public records search, a nice suburban neighborhood about 20 minutes from ours. Similar houses, similar demographic, probably similar mortgage payments and property taxes. He was living a life parallel to mine, with one crucial difference. He apparently thought he could have both his comfortable family life and my wife on the side. I looked up Stellar Events' organizational chart on their website. Marcus was Rebecca's direct supervisor. That added another layer of complication, a power dynamic that made the affair even more inappropriate. Had he pursued her, leveraging his position? Or had she pursued him? Not that it mattered for the fundamental betrayal, but I found myself wanting to understand how it had started. I pulled up the phone records again and started mapping the timeline more carefully. The first call to Marcus's number appeared 19 months ago. Just a few calls that month, all during business hours. Probably legitimate work communication. Then the frequency increased. More calls, longer durations, evening and weekend contacts. By the time we hit the 6-month mark, they were talking daily, often multiple times. The hotel visits started about a year ago. That's when it had gone from emotional affair to physical. That's when Rebecca had made the conscious choice to not just talk to another man, but to sleep with him, repeatedly, in hotel rooms paid for with our money. I thought about the past year of my life. While I'd been helping Maya study for tests, teaching Josh to ride his bike without training wheels, reading bedtime stories to Emma, playing trucks with Cooper, Rebecca had been living a double life. While I'd been present and engaged, she'd been checked out, her mind and heart somewhere else entirely. The pregnancy timeline was clear now, too. She was roughly 3 months along, based on what she'd told me. That meant conception had happened around 6 months ago, right in the middle of the affair. Whether it was careless or intentional, I couldn't know. But the result was the same. Twins that would be born into this mess. Innocent children who didn't ask to be part of this disaster. I thought about Marcus's wife, Sarah. She had no idea that her husband had gotten another woman pregnant. She was living the same lie I'd been living, trusting her spouse, believing in her family's integrity, not knowing that betrayal was happening right under her nose. Did I have an obligation to tell her? Patricia Hendricks had mentioned that having testimony from Marcus's wife about the affair could strengthen my custody case. If Sarah Webb confirmed the timeline, the deception, the impact on both families, it would make Rebecca's position much weaker in court. But more than the legal advantage, I felt something else, a sense of solidarity with this woman I'd never met. We were both victims of the same betrayal. We'd both been lied to by people we trusted. She deserved to know the truth, the same way I'd deserved to know. I found Sarah Webb's contact information through the same public records search. Her Facebook profile was more active than Marcus's. Photos of her kids, posts about school events and community activities, book club meetings. She looked like a nice person, a devoted mother. In 2 months, she'd be facing the same devastation I was experiencing now. I drafted an email, then deleted it. Wrote another version, deleted that too. How do you tell a complete stranger that her husband has been cheating on her and gotten his mistress pregnant? There's no good way to deliver that information. Finally, I decided on a direct approach. I'd tell her the truth, provide evidence, and let her make her own decisions about what to do with the information. She deserved that agency, that choice. But before I sent anything, I wanted to talk to Patricia. This was a legal minefield, and I needed to navigate it carefully. Telling the other wife is your decision, Patricia said when I called her that afternoon. From a legal standpoint, her testimony could be valuable. If she's willing to confirm the affair, provide her own evidence, testify about the impact on her family, it strengthens your case significantly. But you should know that contacting her could escalate things. Marcus might get angry, might try to intimidate you or Rebecca. It could get messy. It's already messy, I pointed out. Fair enough. If you do contact her, document everything. Save all communications. If she provides evidence of the affair from her end, messages between Marcus and Rebecca, admission from Marcus, make sure you keep copies. I spent the rest of the day thinking about it, weighing the decision. By evening, I'd made up my mind. Sarah Webb deserved to know the truth. If our situations were reversed, I'd want someone to tell me. I composed a careful message, explaining who I was, what I'd discovered, and offering to share evidence if she wanted it. I attached copies of the phone records and hotel receipts with Marcus's name visible. I kept the tone factual and sympathetic, acknowledging that this was probably the last thing she wanted to hear, but that I felt she had a right to know. I hovered over the send button for a long moment, then clicked it. The email disappeared from my outbox, carrying truth that would shatter another family. I felt guilty about that, but I also knew I wasn't the one who'd created this situation. Marcus and Rebecca had made these choices. Sarah and I were just dealing with the consequences. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I debated answering, then did. Is this Daniel Foster? A woman's voice, shaking but controlled. Yes. This is Sarah Webb. I got your email. She paused, and I could hear her breathing, gathering courage. Is it true? Is my husband having an affair with your wife? Yes, I said gently. I'm sorry. I know this isn't how you wanted to find out. How long? Her voice broke on the question. Based on the phone records, about 18 months. Physical relationships started roughly a year ago. She made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. A year. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary 3 months ago. He gave me a diamond pendant. Took me to that expensive restaurant downtown. She stopped abruptly. Wait, was that the same restaurant on the receipt you sent? I checked the document. Same restaurant, different date. Yes, he took her there too. Probably told her the same pretty lies he told me. Another pause. Longer this time. Your wife is pregnant? With twins. She tried to tell me they were mine, but I had a vasectomy 3 years ago. The timeline and medical facts make it impossible. 3 months along? About that, yes. Marcus had a business trip 3 months ago. Portland, he said, 4 days. Was that? I don't know, I admitted. But Rebecca told me she was visiting her mother that same weekend. I can check dates if you want. No, I believe you. She was crying now, soft sounds she was trying to suppress. I'm sorry. I'm sure you didn't want to spend your evening comforting the other man's wife. I'm sorry you're going through this. I know exactly how you feel, do you? She sounded angry suddenly. Your wife is pregnant with his children. Everyone will know. At least I could have pretended everything was fine if you hadn't told me. The accusation stung, even though I understood where it came from. You're right, I said quietly. I could have kept silent. Let you keep living the lie. But if our situations were reversed, I'd want to know. I'd want the truth, even if it hurt. She was quiet for a long moment. You're right. You are. I'm sorry. I'm angry and hurt, and I don't know what to do with all of this. That's exactly where I was 2 weeks ago. It gets easier. Not easy, but easier. What are you going to do? She asked. I've filed for divorce. I'm seeking primary custody of our 4 children. I've documented everything, the affair, her absences, the financial deception. I'm protecting my kids and myself. That's smart. She took a shaky breath. I should probably do the same. Thank you for telling me. I hate that you told me, but thank you. She hung up before I could respond. I sat holding the phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just done. I'd detonated a bomb in another family's life, but I'd also given Sarah Webb what someone should have given me much sooner. The truth. Whatever happened next, at least we were both operating with complete information. That had to count for something. With the confrontation behind me and the legal process in motion, I turned my attention to the practical matter of securing our financial future, mine and the children's. Patricia had been clear. Documentation and preparation were everything in a divorce, especially one involving custody disputes. I met with her again 3 days after Rebecca moved out. She'd gone to stay with her parents, which I'd expected. Linda and Robert were already calling me, leaving messages about how I was overreacting, how I needed to think about the children, how divorce was so damaging. I didn't return their calls. There was nothing they could say that would change the facts. Patricia spread documents across her conference table, papers I'd provided about our assets, income, and property. "Let's start with the house," she said. "You mentioned you provided the down payment?" "Yes. $40,000 from savings I'd accumulated before we married. I have bank statements showing the transfer." I pulled out the documentation I'd prepared. "We bought the house 5 years ago for $300,000. Put down the 40, financed the rest. Current market value is probably around $400,000 based on recent sales in the neighborhood. And the mortgage is in both names?" "Yes, but I've made every payment from my income." Rebecca's part-time salary has gone primarily to household expenses and her personal spending. I showed her the account statements. "I can demonstrate that my earnings have covered the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and most other major expenses." Patricia nodded, making notes. "The fact that you provided the down payment from premarital assets is significant. In most equitable distribution states, we can argue that you should retain the house, especially given that you'll have primary custody of the children. They need stability, familiar surroundings. Forcing them to leave their home would be contrary to their best interests." That's what I was hoping. She moved to the next document. "Employment and income. You're making how much annually?" "Base salary is $130,000, plus stock options and bonuses that typically add another $20,000 to $30,000 depending on performance. Last year total compensation was around $155,000. "And Rebecca?" "She works part-time as an event coordinator. 20 hours a week, roughly $30,000 annually. No benefits, she's on my insurance." Patricia calculated quickly. "That's a significant income disparity. Given your respective earnings and the fact that you'll have primary custody, she'll likely owe minimal child support, if any. More likely, the court will recognize that you're already supporting the children financially and will continue to do so." "What about her claim to my retirement accounts?" "Those are marital assets accumulated during the marriage, so they'll be subject to division." "How much are we talking about?" I pulled out the statements. "My 401k currently has about $220,000. I also have stock options from work that are vested, worth approximately $80,000 at current market value. So, roughly $300,000 in retirement assets. Standard division would be 50-50, but we can argue for a different split based on several factors. Your income disparity, the fact that you'll have primary custody and associated expenses, and most importantly, her adultery. Her adultery affects the financial settlement? In some states, yes. It demonstrates breach of marital contract, and courts sometimes consider it when dividing assets. It's not automatic, but combined with your other arguments, primary custody, primary breadwinner, premarital contribution to the house, we can make a strong case for a more favorable division." We went through the rest of our assets methodically. 2 cars, mine worth about $30,000, hers worth $20,000. Both paid off, both purchased during the marriage. The joint savings account had $40,000, which I'd already split, transferring $20,000 to my new separate account. Various household items, furniture, appliances, standard marital property worth maybe $30,000 total. Combined marital assets, excluding the house, are roughly $400,000, Patricia summarized. The house itself has about $100,000 in equity. You're the higher earner, you provided the down payment, and you'll have primary custody. I'd propose the following. You retain the house and your vehicle. Rebecca takes her vehicle. Retirement accounts split 60-40 in your favor, not 50-50. She takes her personal belongings and half the household furnishings if she wants them. What about child support? Given the custody arrangement and income disparity, you probably won't receive child support, but you also won't pay any. The children live primarily with you. You cover all major expenses. The court will consider that you're already providing full financial support. And spousal support? Patricia shook her head. Very unlikely. The marriage is only 12 years. She's employable and currently employed, and most significantly, she committed adultery. Alimony is designed to support a spouse who sacrificed career for family. Rebecca worked part-time by choice, not necessity, and she violated the marriage. I'd be shocked if a judge awarded her spousal support. The financial picture was clearer than I'd expected. I'd walked into this meeting worried that divorce would devastate me economically, that I'd lose the house and half of everything I'd worked for. Instead, it looked like I'd retain the home, the majority of my retirement savings, and full financial stability for the children. What about the children's college funds? I asked. Those are in whose name? Mine. I set up 529 plans for each of them before Rebecca started working. I've been the only contributor. About 60,000 total across all 4 accounts. Those are your separate property, established with your separate funds. They're not subject to division. Make sure you have documentation showing you were the sole contributor. I did. I had documentation for everything. Years of bank statements, investment records, property documents. Being organized was paying off. One more thing, Patricia said. Rebecca's pregnancy. When those twins are born, Marcus Webb will be the legal father if he's married to someone else. Your name won't be on the birth certificate unless you sign an acknowledgement of paternity, which obviously you won't do. But Rebecca may try to claim you should support them anyway, especially if Marcus doesn't step up. Can she do that? She can try. But paternity testing will prove they're not yours, and you'll have medical documentation of your vasectomy. No court will force you to support another man's children when biology clearly proves they're not yours. That said, be prepared for her to argue that you should help financially because you're married when they're born. We won't be married when they're born. This will be finalized by then, right? That's the goal. Uncontested divorces in this state typically take 4 to 6 months. Contested can take longer. If Rebecca fights the custody arrangement or asset division, we could be looking at 8 months to a year. The twins will likely be born before the divorce is final. That was something I hadn't fully considered. Rebecca would give birth while we were still technically married, which might complicate things legally. What do we do about that? We include language in the divorce decree explicitly stating that you are not the father of any children born to Rebecca after the date of separation, and that paternity testing will be required before any parental rights or responsibilities are assigned. We'll make it airtight. I left Patricia's office with a folder full of documents to sign and a clearer understanding of the path forward. Financially, I'd be okay. The house was secure. The children's futures were protected. My retirement wasn't being completely gutted. More than the money, I felt relieved that the practical aspects were manageable. I'd feared that divorce would leave me struggling, unable to provide the stability my children needed. Instead, it looked like we'd be fine, maybe even better off without the financial drain of Rebecca's affair-related spending. That evening, I updated my budget spreadsheet. Without Rebecca's nominal contribution to household expenses, I'd need to absorb some additional costs, but my salary could handle it. I'd probably need to hire some help, a part-time nanny or sitter for after-school hours when I couldn't leave work, but that was doable. I looked at the mortgage payment, the utility bills, the grocery budget, the kids' activity fees, all manageable. I'd been essentially supporting the family solo already. Making it official just meant adjusting a few line items. The children's college funds would continue to grow. I'd keep contributing, maybe even increase contributions with the money I'd been spending on Rebecca's expenses. Maya would start college in 7 years. I wanted to make sure she had options, that none of my children would be limited by financial constraints. I thought about the house, this building that had represented home and family and everything I'd worked to create. It would stay ours. The kids wouldn't have to leave their rooms, their neighborhood, their schools. That continuity mattered more than any financial calculation. Rebecca could start over somewhere else. She'd have her income, her share of the retirement accounts, enough to set up a modest life. The twins would be her responsibility, hers and Marcus's if he chose to be involved. I felt a pang of sympathy for those unborn children, but I couldn't let that sympathy trap me into supporting another man's family. My responsibility was to Maya, Josh, Emma, and Cooper. They were my children, my priority, my reason for fighting through this painful process. And financially, at least, I could give them security. That was something. In the chaos of betrayal and dissolution, knowing I could still provide for my children felt like solid ground beneath my feet. The email from Mrs. Patterson, Josh's third-grade teacher, arrived on a Wednesday morning. Subject line, concerns about Josh, meeting request. My stomach dropped even though I'd been expecting something like this. Josh's behavior at home had been increasingly troubled, and I knew it was spilling over into school. I called her during lunch, and we scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. I told my team I'd be working remotely for the rest of the day, and picked up Josh early, telling him we were meeting with his teacher to talk about how school was going. Am I in trouble? He asked quietly from the back seat. No, buddy. We just want to make sure you're doing okay. Mrs. Patterson is worried about you. He didn't respond, just stared out the window, and my heart ached for him. He was 9 years old and carrying weight no child should have to bear. Mrs. Patterson was in her early 40s, a veteran teacher with warmth that immediately put students at ease. Her classroom walls were covered with student artwork and encouraging posters. She gestured for Josh to sit at the reading corner with a book while we talked at her desk. Mr. Foster, thank you for coming in. I wanted to talk to you about some changes I've noticed in Josh over the past month or so. She pulled out a folder with his recent work. His grades have dropped. He's gone from solid B's and A's to C's and a few D's. He's not turning in homework consistently. In class, he seems distracted, withdrawn. She showed me a math worksheet with problems left blank, a reading response that was barely a paragraph when the assignment called for 2 pages. More concerning is his social behavior. Josh used to be engaged with his peers, participated in group activities, raised his hand to answer questions. Now he sits alone at recess, doesn't volunteer in class, and yesterday he snapped at another student over something minor. That's completely unlike him. I looked at the evidence of my son's distress and felt my throat tighten. Things have been difficult at home, I said carefully. His mother and I are separating. She moved out about 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Patterson's expression shifted to understanding and sympathy. I'm sorry to hear that. That explains quite a bit, actually. Children often respond to family stress through behavioral and academic changes. She glanced at Josh, making sure he was absorbed in his book. How much do the children know? Not much yet. I've told them their mother and I need some time apart, that she's staying somewhere else for a while. I haven't given them the full truth about why. I paused. How much should I tell them? They're 11, 9, 6, and 4. Age-appropriate honesty is usually best. The older two, especially, probably sense more than you think. Children are remarkably perceptive. They pick up on tension, on changes in routine, on things left unsaid. She tapped Josh's folder. This, his grades dropping, his withdrawal. This is how he's processing what he can't talk about. What should I do? First, keep the lines of communication open. Let him know it's okay to feel angry, sad, confused, that whatever he's feeling is valid. Second, maintain as much routine and stability as possible. Consistency helps children feel secure when other things are uncertain. She paused. Third, consider counseling. The school has resources, or I can recommend some excellent child psychologists who specialize in family transitions. I'll look into counseling for all of them. Good. For Josh specifically, I'll be gentle with deadlines. Give him some grace on late work. Check in with him regularly. But Mr. Foster, she looked at me directly, he needs you to be present and available. Not just physically, but emotionally. He needs to know you're solid ground. I understand. She called Josh over, and we talked with him about his feelings, his struggles with homework, his preference to sit alone at recess. He was quiet, giving short answers, clearly uncomfortable. But when Mrs. Patterson asked if he was worried about his mom and dad, his eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to get divorced, he whispered. I know, buddy. This is really hard, and it's okay to be sad about it. I pulled him into a hug. But I promise you, no matter what happens with the grown-up stuff, I'm always going to be your dad. I'm always going to be here for you. He cried against my shoulder, and Mrs. Patterson discreetly stepped away to give us privacy. When Josh had calmed down, she gave him a pass to the water fountain and a few minutes to collect himself before returning to class. You're doing the right thing by being honest with him, she said to me. Keep doing that. He'll be okay, but he needs time and support. The next day, I had a similar conversation with Maya's 5th grade teacher, Mr. Chen. He'd also noticed changes, Maya becoming overly responsible, taking on a caretaker role with younger students. Her usual joy in learning replaced by anxious perfectionism. She's always been mature for her age, Mr. Chen said, but lately she seems to be carrying the weight of the world. In group projects, she takes over completely, not trusting others to do their parts. She stays after class to organize supplies that don't need organizing. It's like she's trying to control everything because something in her life feels out of control. The description fit exactly with what I'd seen at home. Maya managing her siblings, anticipating needs, trying to keep everything running smoothly. She was 11 years old, trying to fill the gap her mother had left. I don't want her to feel responsible for holding the family together, I said. Then you need to explicitly tell her that. Children like Maya, the eldest, the responsible ones, they often assume adult burdens without being asked. They need permission to just be kids. That evening I asked Maya to take a walk with me, just the two of us. We circled our neighborhood as the sun set, and I tried to find the right words. You've been amazing these past few weeks, I started, helping with your brothers and sister, keeping things organized, being so grown up about everything. But Maya, that's not your job. You're not responsible for making everything okay. Someone has to help, she said quietly, and I appreciate that. But you're 11. Your job is to be a kid, to do your schoolwork, hang out with your friends, pursue your interests, not to parent your siblings or worry about adult problems. But Mom's gone and you're working, and someone needs to make sure Emma brushes her teeth and Cooper finds his shoes. That's my job. I'm the parent. If I need help, I'll ask for it. But I don't want you taking that on yourself. I stopped walking and turned to face her. I know things have been confusing and scary. I know you probably have questions about what's happening with Mom and me. She looked up at me, and I saw the same perceptiveness I'd read in her journal. You're getting divorced, aren't you? The directness surprised me, but I shouldn't have been surprised. Maya always saw through half-truths. Yes, I said. We are. Because of the babies? That's part of it. There are grown-up complications I can't fully explain right now, but yes, the pregnancy is connected to why Mom and I can't stay married. Are the babies yours? The question hung in the evening air. I could lie, deflect, protect her from the ugly truth, but Mr. Chen's words echoed in my mind. She was trying to control everything because something felt out of control. Maybe honesty, age-appropriate honesty, would give her back some sense of solid ground. No, I said quietly. They're not. She absorbed this, processing. So, Mom, she was with someone else? Yes. That's why she was gone so much. Yes. Maya nodded slowly, and I watched her integrate this information into the framework she'd been building. I knew something was wrong, she said finally. I just didn't know what. I thought maybe it was my fault somehow, like we weren't good enough. Stop. I knelt down to her eye level. None of this is your fault. Not yours, not Josh's, not Emma's, not Cooper's. This is about adult choices and adult problems. You kids are perfect exactly as you are. Don't ever think you caused this. She hugged me fiercely and I held her. This child who'd been trying so hard to keep everything together. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out our new normal. You and Josh and Emma and Cooper will stay with me in our house. Mom will have her own place and you'll visit her regularly. But your home base is here with me. Your rooms, your schools, your friends, all of that stays the same. What about the babies when they're born? They'll be with Mom and their biological father. They're not part of our immediate family. Do I have to be nice to them if I meet them? The question was so practical, so Maya, that I almost smiled. You don't have to have any relationship with them that you don't want. That's your choice. We walked back home, and I could see some of the tension leave her shoulders. The truth, even when painful, was better than the uncertainty and self-blame she'd been carrying. Emma's kindergarten teacher had similar concerns during our conference. Increased clinginess, anxiety about separation, regression in independence. I had the same conversation with her that I'd had with Josh and Maya, adjusted for a 6-year-old's understanding. Yes, Mom and Dad were living separately. No, it wasn't her fault. Yes, she was loved and safe. Cooper's daycare director noted his increased attachment to me and his anxiety when I dropped him off. At 4, he couldn't fully understand what was happening, but he felt the disruption. I spent extra time with him during drop-offs, created consistent goodbye rituals, called during the day to talk to him. The teachers became allies in a way I hadn't expected. They offered flexibility, understanding, support. They watched for warning signs, checked in with my kids regularly, gave me feedback about what they were observing. Mrs. Patterson started a lunch group for students dealing with family changes, and Josh began attending. It helped, knowing he wasn't alone. Mr. Chen recommended a counselor, Dr. Lisa Martinez, who specialized in children and family transitions. I made appointments for all 4 kids, individual sessions tailored to their ages and needs. The first sessions were scheduled for the following week. Other parents stepped up too. Tyler's mom offered to carpool Josh to soccer practice. Emma's best friend's family invited her for weekend playdates. The parents in our community, many of whom had been through their own divorces or difficulties, created an informal support network. I was overwhelmed by the kindness, by the village that appeared when I admitted we were struggling. I'd been so focused on presenting a perfect family image that I hadn't realized how many people would show up with practical help and genuine compassion when the image shattered. One evening, dropping Josh at soccer practice, Tyler's mom pulled me aside. My ex-husband and I divorced when Tyler was 7, she said. I know how hard this is. If you ever need someone to pick up kids, drop off dinner, or just talk to someone who's been through it, call me. Similar offers came from other parents, from colleagues, from neighbors. People I'd kept at friendly but distant arm's length suddenly became genuine support. It was humbling and heartening. The school connections gave me something I desperately needed, reassurance that my children would be okay, that they had adults beyond me who cared about their well-being, that we weren't facing this alone. The teachers saw them every day, could monitor their progress, could provide continuity when everything else felt uncertain, and most importantly, they confirmed what Patricia Hendricks needed to prove in court, that I was the engaged, present parent, the one who showed up for conferences, responded to concerns, sought help when needed, maintained communication with the people who spent their days with my children. Rebecca hadn't been to a parent-teacher conference in 2 years. She didn't know her children's teachers' names. She couldn't tell you what subjects they struggled with or excelled in. That pattern was documented now, not just by me, but by the educational professionals who'd witnessed our respective levels of involvement. It was sad, this documentation of her absence, but it was also necessary. My children deserved a parent who showed up, who knew their teachers, who responded when they struggled. They deserved someone present, and I was determined to be that person every single day. Rebecca's parents had always been a presence in our marriage, but never a comfortable one. Linda and Robert Henderson lived in a sprawling suburban home 30 minutes away, the kind of house designed to impress rather than invite. Linda was a retired school administrator who'd spent her career managing appearances, and Robert was a semi-retired accountant who'd built a successful practice through meticulous attention to detail and client relationships. They'd raised Rebecca as an only child, their perfect daughter who could do no wrong. Every achievement was celebrated lavishly, every mistake explained away or blamed on external circumstances. I'd watched this dynamic for 12 years, noting how Rebecca had never quite grown out of seeking her mother's approval, how she'd bend herself into whatever shape Linda deemed appropriate. The phone calls started the day after Rebecca moved in with them. Linda first. "Daniel, Rebecca is devastated." "Absolutely devastated. She's told us what's happening, and I have to say I'm shocked at how you're handling this." I'd been expecting the call, had prepared myself for it. "Linda, I'm not going to discuss the details of our marriage with you. This is between Rebecca and me. She's my daughter. She's pregnant and fragile, and you've thrown her out of her own home." "I didn't throw her out. She chose to leave after I discovered she'd been having an affair for 18 months. Silence. "Then, that's not what she told us." "I'm sure it's not, but I have documentation, phone records, hotel receipts, her own admission." "Ask her about Marcus Webb." More silence. I could hear Linda processing, recalculating. Even if that's true, marriage is about forgiveness, about working through difficulties. "You're being vindictive and cruel, punishing her when she needs support. She's carrying another man's children, Linda. Twins. I had a vasectomy 3 years ago. The pregnancy is medically impossible with me as the father. Doctors can be wrong. They're not wrong. I've had multiple tests confirming sterility. The babies aren't mine, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to maintain appearances. Think about your children. 4 innocent children who need their family intact." "You're being selfish, Daniel." "Selfish and short-sighted." The accusation was almost funny. I was selfish for not accepting my wife's affair babies, for not continuing to live a lie. The children deserve honesty. They deserve a parent who's present and engaged. Rebecca has been neither for the past 18 months. That's ridiculous. Rebecca is a devoted mother. Really? When was the last time she attended one of their school events? When was Maya's last band concert? What's Josh's teacher's name? Linda couldn't answer, and we both knew it. "You're twisting things to make yourself look better. Rebecca says you've been distant and cold, working all the time, never making her feel valued. I work to support our family, and I've been the primary parent for the past year while Rebecca pursued her affair. Ask the kids' teachers if you don't believe me. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being told to forgive infidelity and raise another man's children. I'm filing for divorce, Linda. I have an attorney, I have documentation, and I'm seeking primary custody. You can support Rebecca through that process, but you can't change the outcome." She hung up on me. 2 hours later, Robert called. His approach was different, quieter, more calculated. "Daniel, I understand you're angry. You have a right to be angry, but divorce is a drastic step. Expensive, complicated, hard on everyone, especially the children. I'm aware. Rebecca made a mistake. A serious mistake. But people make mistakes. Surely you can find it in yourself to work past this. For the sake of your family. The family Rebecca destroyed when she got pregnant by her lover? That's crude. It's factual." Robert sighed, and I could hear the accountant in him calculating costs and benefits. "What do you want, Daniel? What would it take for you to reconsider?" The question revealed everything about how he saw the world. Everything was negotiable. Everything had a price. "There's nothing to negotiate." "The marriage is over. Rebecca says you're trying to take the children from her. I'm seeking primary custody because I've been the primary parent. The children will still see Rebecca regularly. She's their mother, and I'm their father. The one who's been present, who knows their teachers and their schedules and their fears and their joys. Rebecca chose her affair over her family. I'm choosing our children. You're being unreasonable. I'm being honest." "That's not the same thing." He tried a different tack. You know we'll support Rebecca in this. We'll hire the best attorney money can buy. We'll testify on her behalf. We'll fight you. That's your choice. But fighting doesn't change the facts. It just makes everything more expensive and painful. You don't want us as enemies, Daniel. The veiled threat hung in the air. I don't want you as enemies, I agreed. But I won't let the fear of your disapproval trap me in a fraudulent marriage. Do what you need to do. I'm doing what I need to do. He hung up, and I sat staring at my phone, feeling the weight of what was coming. They would fight. They'd throw money and influence at the problem, trying to reshape reality until it matched their preferred narrative. Rebecca was their perfect daughter, and I was the villain trying to destroy her. The text messages started next day. Linda mostly, with occasional messages from Robert. The children missed their mother. Don't keep them from her. I wasn't keeping anyone from anyone. Rebecca had my number, knew where the kids went to school, could arrange visits anytime. She'd chosen not to. Rebecca is beside herself with worry. She just wants to see her babies. Then she should have thought about that before getting pregnant by her boss. You're traumatizing those poor children with your vindictiveness. I was protecting them from living in a house built on lies. The messages escalated in tone and frequency. Linda accused me of parental alienation, of poisoning the children against their mother, of being controlling and abusive. Robert sent lengthy texts about the legal consequences I'd face, the financial penalties, the damage to my reputation. I didn't respond. Patricia had advised me to document everything but engage with nothing. Don't give them ammunition, she'd said. Let them vent into the void. So that's what I did. I saved every message, every voicemail, every email. I created a folder documenting the Hendersons' harassment and attempts to manipulate the situation. Then came the message that crossed a line. From Linda, I've spoken with an attorney. We're going to pursue grandparents' rights. We'll get court-ordered visitation with those children if we have to. You can't keep them from their family. I called Patricia immediately. Can they do that? I asked. They can file for grandparents' rights, but it's an uphill battle in most states. Generally, courts only grant grandparent visitation over a parent's objection if the child's welfare is at stake, or if denying access would harm the child. If you're not denying access, if Rebecca has visitation and they can see the children during her time, they have no case. So I just ignore it, document it, add it to the harassment folder. If they actually file, we'll respond. But often these threats are just that, threats meant to intimidate. 3 days later, I got a call from Maya's school. Linda had shown up during lunch trying to take Maya out for the afternoon. The school, following protocols I'd established when I updated emergency contacts, had refused and called me. Mrs. Henderson was quite insistent, the principal said. She claimed she had permission to pick up Maya. When we explained that you'd specified only you and Rebecca were authorized, she became angry. Eventually she left, but I wanted you to be aware. I thanked her, hung up, and immediately called Patricia again. That's attempted unauthorized removal, Patricia said grimly. Document it. Contact all schools and daycare. Make sure they understand that only you and Rebecca, on her designated custody days, can pick up the children. No grandparents without explicit written permission from you. I spent that afternoon calling every institution my children attended, making sure the authorization lists were crystal clear. I explained the situation as diplomatically as possible. Family conflict, grandparents overstepping, need for clear boundaries. That evening I sat down and wrote Linda and Robert an email. Patricia reviewed it before I sent it. Linda and Robert, I understand you're concerned about Rebecca and want to support her during this difficult time. However, your recent behavior has crossed acceptable boundaries. Attempting to pick up Maya from school without authorization is not acceptable. Threatening legal action to force visitation is not acceptable. Sending daily messages accusing me of abuse and manipulation is not acceptable. I am not preventing you from seeing the children. You are welcome to arrange visits through Rebecca during her custody time. What I will not tolerate is interference in my parenting decisions, attempts to circumvent legal protocols, or harassment. If this behavior continues, I will pursue a restraining order. I don't want to take that step, but I will protect my children and myself from intimidation and boundary violations. I hope we can all move forward with more respect and less hostility. Daniel. Linda's response came within an hour. How dare you threaten us? We're trying to protect our grandchildren from your vindictive behavior. You'll regret this. I forwarded the response to Patricia without comment. Another piece of documentation for the growing file. The pattern continued over the following weeks. Linda would send emotional appeals about Rebecca's suffering. Robert would send legalistic threats about consequences. and occasionally one of them would show up at the house or the school, trying to force contact or gather information they could use against me. I maintained boundaries. I documented everything. I refused to engage beyond brief, factual responses. The children, thankfully, seemed largely insulated from their grandparents' behavior. Maya asked once why Grandma and Grandpa hadn't visited lately, and I told her they were dealing with grown-up problems, but still loved her. Josh and Emma didn't seem to notice much. The Hendersons had never been particularly hands-on grandparents, more interested in holiday photo opportunities than daily involvement. What struck me most was how their reaction confirmed everything I'd observed about Rebecca's upbringing. They couldn't accept that their daughter had done something wrong. They had to rewrite the narrative until she was the victim and I was the villain. They'd spent her entire life protecting her from consequences, and they couldn't stop now, even when the consequences were entirely of her own making. I felt some sympathy for them, actually. They were about to lose their perfect daughter illusion the same way I'd lost my perfect marriage illusion. Eventually, reality would penetrate their defenses, and they'd have to accept that Rebecca had made choices that hurt everyone around her. But that was their journey to make. My journey was protecting my children and building a life based on truth rather than comfortable fictions. If that made me the villain in the Henderson story, I could live with that. Better to be the honest villain than the complicit accomplice to someone else's lies. 3 weeks after my initial phone call with Sarah Webb, a handwritten letter arrived at my office. The return address showed her name, and I recognized the street as the one where Marcus lived. I opened it carefully, curious why she'd chosen old-fashioned mail over email or phone. The letter was written in neat, careful handwriting on cream-colored stationery, the kind you buy for meaningful correspondence, not casual notes. Dear Daniel, I hope this letter finds you as well as can be expected given our shared circumstances. I've started this letter a dozen times, not sure what to say or whether I should say anything at all. But I keep thinking about our brief phone conversation and feeling like there's more we need to discuss. Since you called, my world has been turned inside out. I confronted Marcus the same night we spoke. At first he denied everything, told me you were a jealous husband making things up. But I had the evidence you sent, and eventually he admitted the affair. Not just admitted it, confessed details I didn't ask for and wish I didn't know. He'd been seeing Rebecca for 18 months. They met at work functions, started talking, became friends, then more. He said she pursued him initially, made him feel seen and appreciated in ways I apparently didn't, as if that justifies anything. As if being noticed by another woman excuses 18 months of lies. The twins are his. He confirmed that too. He'd known about the pregnancy for 6 weeks before I found out. Rebecca had told him, asked him what they should do, and he'd told her to handle it. Just handle it. Like unwanted children were a problem to manage rather than human beings. He doesn't want to leave me. He says he loves me, loves our children, never meant to hurt anyone. He wants to work on our marriage, go to counseling, rebuild trust. He said all the words I'm supposed to want to hear, but I keep thinking about you, about how you had the courage to tell me the truth when staying silent would have been easier. You didn't owe me anything, but you gave me honesty anyway. That means something. I'm writing because I want to offer you the same courtesy. I've gathered evidence from my end. Messages I found on Marcus's phone, credit card statements showing charges I never questioned, receipts and timelines that match what you discovered. I've documented his confession, recorded conversations where he admits the affair and the pregnancy. If you need this evidence for your divorce and custody case, it's yours. I know how courts work. The more documentation you have, the stronger your position. And you deserve a strong position, Daniel. You deserve primary custody of your children, and Rebecca deserves to face consequences for her choices. I'm not doing this out of spite, though I won't pretend I'm not angry at both of them. I'm doing it because I believe in accountability and truth. Also, frankly, because having this information used constructively makes me feel less helpless. I can't control what Marcus and Rebecca did, but I can control how I respond. I've decided to stay with Marcus, at least for now. Before you judge that decision, know that I'm doing it with eyes wide open. Not because I believe his promises, but because I need time to think clearly, to consult my own attorney, to understand my options without making impulsive choices I'll regret. My children are 14 and 12, old enough to be devastated by divorce, but also old enough to eventually understand the truth. I need to navigate this carefully. That said, I won't be complicit in protecting him from the consequences of his affair. If he helped destroy your family, he should have to answer for that. The twins will be his legal responsibility, not yours. I'll make sure of that. If you want to meet in person, I'm willing. If you prefer to keep our communication minimal, I understand. But please know you're not alone in this, Daniel. Someone else sees the truth. Someone else is on your side. even if we're strangers connected only by shared betrayal. With understanding. Sarah Webb P.S. I've included copies of text messages between Marcus and Rebecca, bank statements showing affair-related expenses from our joint account, and a signed statement about Marcus's confession. Keep them somewhere safe. You'll need them. Attached to the letter were several printed documents, screenshots of text conversations that made my stomach turn, bank statements with highlighted charges, and a notarized statement from Sarah detailing Marcus's admission of the affair. The pregnancy and the timeline. I sat in my office reading through everything, feeling the strange solidarity that comes from finding someone who understands your specific pain. Sarah Webb had been blindsided the same way I had. She'd trusted someone who didn't deserve it, built a life on a foundation that turned out to be quicksand. The text messages between Marcus and Rebecca were worse than I'd imagined. Not just logistics about meeting times and places, but expressions of affection, complaints about their respective spouses, discussions about their future together. One message from Rebecca. He barely notices me anymore. I'm just the mother of his children, not a woman he desires. When I'm with you, I feel alive again. Marcus's response. I know exactly what you mean. Sarah is so focused on the kids and her book club and her routines. With you, I'm not just a paycheck and a lawnmower. I'm a person. Another exchange from 4 months ago. Rebecca. What if I got pregnant? What would we do? Marcus. We're careful. That won't happen. Rebecca. But what if it did? Marcus. Then we'd figure it out. Together. But when it did happen, Marcus had told her to handle it, leaving her to navigate alone. The betrayal went both directions. Rebecca had betrayed me, and Marcus had betrayed her. A whole web of lies and broken promises. Sarah's bank statements showed similar patterns to what I'd found in our accounts. Unexplained charges at restaurants and hotels, cash withdrawals that far exceeded normal spending, gifts purchased that never came home. The financial deception mirrored the emotional deception, practical lies supporting the larger ones. Most valuable was Sarah's notarized statement. In clear, factual language, she detailed her confrontation with Marcus, his admission of the 18-month affair, his acknowledgement that he was the biological father of Rebecca's twins, and his stated intention to avoid legal responsibility if possible. It was signed, dated, and notarized, legal gold for my case. I called Patricia immediately. This is incredible, she said after I'd summarized the contents. Third-party testimony from the other betrayed spouse, documentary evidence from a completely independent source, proof of financial deception from both sides. This strengthens your case significantly. Can we use all of it? Absolutely. Sarah Webb isn't a party to your divorce, so there's no conflict. She's simply a witness providing evidence of Rebecca's affair. The fact that it corroborates everything you've claimed makes your case nearly bulletproof. She paused. You should meet with her. Thank her in person. And if you're comfortable with it, we could take her deposition. Get her testimony on record now. In case Marcus or Rebecca try to interfere later, I drafted a response to Sarah's letter that evening, keeping it brief but heartfelt. Dear Sarah, thank you for your letter and for the evidence you've provided. Your courage in facing this situation honestly, and your generosity in helping me despite your own pain, mean more than I can express. You didn't have to do any of this, but you did, and I'm grateful. I understand your decision to stay with Marcus, at least for now. These choices are complicated and personal, and no one else can tell you what's right for your family. I respect whatever path you choose. If you're willing, my attorney would like to take your deposition. Get your testimony recorded officially. It would be helpful for my custody case, but only if you're comfortable with it. I know this is a lot to ask when you're dealing with your own crisis. I'd also like to meet in person if you're open to it. Not for any legal purpose, just as two people who've been through similar experiences. I think we could both benefit from talking to someone who truly understands. Thank you again for your honesty, your evidence, and your support. You're right. Knowing I'm not alone in this makes it more bearable, with gratitude and understanding. Daniel P.S. If you ever need someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods the following Saturday. I was nervous for reasons I couldn't quite articulate. Sarah Webb was a stranger, but she knew the most intimate details of my life's worst crisis. There was something vulnerable about that. She arrived first. I recognized her from her Facebook photos, mid-40s, brown hair with gray threading through it, tired eyes that probably mirrored my own. She stood when I approached, and we shook hands awkwardly before sitting down. Thank you for meeting me, she said. She stood when I approached, and we shook hands awkwardly before sitting down. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to. I wasn't sure either," I admitted, "but I'm glad we are. Your letter meant a lot." We talked for 2 hours. About our marriages, our children, the ways we'd missed or ignored warning signs. About the specific pain of realizing someone you trusted had been lying for so long. About the practical challenges of moving forward. "How are your kids handling it?" I asked. "They don't know yet." Marcus and I agreed to wait until we'd made some decisions about our future. My daughter suspects something. She's 14 and frighteningly perceptive. But my son is oblivious, still living in the world where his parents are happily married. I told my older two the truth, 11 and 9. They deserved to know why their mother moved out, why everything was changing. How did they take it? Better than I expected, worse than I hoped. They're resilient, but they're also hurt and confused. "We're all in counseling," Sarah nodded. "I'll need to do that too, once everything's out in the open." Marcus keeps promising to do better, to be the husband I deserve, but I don't think he understands that the person he was is gone. I can't unknow what I know now. Exactly. Rebecca has been calling, texting, wanting to work things out. But work out what? How do you rebuild a marriage when the foundation was rotten? "You don't," Sarah said quietly. "You either build something completely new, which seems impossible, or you accept that it's over." We talked about Rebecca and Marcus too, not with vindictiveness, but with a kind of analytical curiosity. What had they been thinking? Had they considered the consequences? Did they feel guilty, or just angry at being caught? "Marcus says he loves me," Sarah said. "He says the affair was a mistake, that he never meant to hurt me or the kids. But he also says Rebecca pursued him, made him feel special, and how could he resist? So which is it? Does he love me, or was he just flattered by the attention?" Rebecca claims I was distant, that I didn't appreciate her, that she was lonely and unnoticed. Maybe there's truth in that, but the solution to feeling unnoticed isn't to have an affair. It's to talk to your spouse, go to counseling, work on the relationship, not to sleep with your boss for 18 months. "They want us to shoulder some of the blame," Sarah observed. "To accept that we somehow drove them to this. But that's not how responsibility works. No, it's not." Before we parted, Sarah agreed to give a deposition. Patricia scheduled it for the following week, and Sarah showed up, answered questions honestly, provided documentation, and never wavered in her testimony. Her presence was steady, credible, devastating to any defense Rebecca might try to mount. The deposition transcript became another weapon in my growing arsenal, independent testimony from a woman with no motive to lie, confirming everything I'd claimed about the affair, the timeline, the twins' paternity. Rebecca's attorney would have no way to discredit Sarah. She wasn't a scorned ex-wife seeking revenge. She was still married to Marcus, still living in the same house. She was simply a woman telling the truth about what her husband had confessed. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I maintained occasional contact, a text checking in, an email sharing updates on the legal proceedings. We weren't friends exactly, but we were allies. Two people who'd been betrayed by the same conspiracy, supporting each other through parallel nightmares. She sent me a message when she finally told her children about the affair. "Hardest conversation of my life," she wrote, "but they deserved the truth. Thanks for giving me the courage to be honest with them." I sent her updates when we had good days with my kids, when the routine felt almost normal, when I could see light at the end of the tunnel. She'd respond with encouragement, with understanding, with her own small victories. Marcus apparently hated our connection. Sarah told me he'd accused her of forming an inappropriate relationship with me, of making things worse by staying in contact. The hypocrisy was almost funny. The man who'd had an 18-month affair was upset that his wife was texting with his affair partner's husband, but our connection wasn't inappropriate. It was honest, supportive, and entirely platonic. A friendship born from shared trauma and mutual understanding. We were two people helping each other survive storms we'd never asked to weather. And in a strange way, knowing Sarah, having her testimony, seeing her face the truth with such courage, it all made me stronger. I wasn't alone in my fight for honesty and accountability. Someone else believed me. Someone else was on my side. That solidarity mattered more than I'd expected. 6 weeks after Rebecca moved out, I sat in Patricia Hendricks' conference room, reviewing the final strategy for our custody and divorce case. Everything I'd been gathering, the evidence, the testimony, the documentation, was coming together into a comprehensive legal argument that would determine my children's future. Patricia spread documents across the table in organized stacks. "Let's walk through exactly what we're proposing and why it's likely to succeed." She pulled out the custody agreement draft, a legal document that represented weeks of work and careful consideration. "Primary physical custody to you, with Rebecca receiving standard visitation every other weekend, alternating holidays, 2 weeks in summer. This isn't punitive. It's what serves the children's best interests based on documented patterns of involvement. What about her objections? I asked. She'll fight this. Of course she will. But look at what we have. Patricia pulled out a thick folder. Testimony from 4 different teachers, documenting your consistent involvement versus her absence. Mrs. Patterson's notes about Josh's behavioral changes correlating with Rebecca's increasing distance. Mr. Chen's observations about Maya taking on inappropriate caretaking roles. Documentation of missed school events, forgotten appointments, a pattern spanning 18 months. She added another stack. Your calendar showing you handled 78% of hands-on parenting over the past year. Drop-offs, pickups, homework help, medical appointments, extracurricular activities. Rebecca can't dispute these facts. They're documented by third parties who have no stake in the outcome. She'll claim I'm exaggerating or keeping records to make her look bad. She can claim whatever she wants. The teacher's testimony isn't your opinion, it's their professional observation. They didn't know you were documenting anything. They reached out to you because you were the responsive, available parent. Patricia moved to the financial documents. Asset division. We're proposing you retain the house. You provided the down payment from premarital savings, $40,000 documented by bank records. The house is where the children live, where their stability resides. Forcing them to leave serves no one's interests except Rebecca's desire to punish you. What's the equity situation? Current value is approximately $410,000. Outstanding mortgage is $305,000. That's $105,000 in equity. Normally that would be split 50-50, but we're arguing you should retain the full equity given your premarital contribution and primary custody status. She won't agree to that. Probably not. So we're prepared to compromise. You keep the house. She gets a larger share of the retirement accounts to offset the equity. Speaking of which, Patricia pulled out investment statements. Your 401k currently has $223,000. Stock options vested at $82,000. Total retirement assets of $305,000. Standard split is 50-50? Standard, yes. We're proposing 60-40 in your favor based on several factors. First, you've been the primary earner throughout the marriage. Second, you'll have primary custody and associated expenses. Third, her adultery demonstrates a breach of marital contract. Does adultery actually affect financial distribution? It depends on the judge and how we frame it. Some judges consider fault in asset division, especially when the adultery directly resulted in pregnancy with another man. We're arguing that Rebecca's choices imposed financial consequences, legal fees, therapy costs for the children, reduced household income from divorce. Those consequences shouldn't fall entirely on you. Patricia pulled out another document. Child support. Given the income disparity, your $130,000 base plus bonuses versus her $30,000 part-time, normally you'd receive child support. But with primary custody and your higher earnings, we're proposing no child support from either party. You'll continue supporting the children as you have been, and Rebecca won't have that financial burden. That seems generous. It is. But it strengthens our position. We're not trying to financially devastate her. We're trying to secure custody. By not seeking child support, we show the judge that this isn't about money. It's about the children's welfare. What about spousal support? We're opposing any alimony. The marriage lasted 12 years. Rebecca is employable and currently employed. And most significantly, she committed adultery. Alimony is designed to support a spouse who sacrificed career advancement for family. Rebecca worked part-time by choice, not necessity. Your income allowed that choice, but you're not obligated to maintain her lifestyle post-divorce. Patricia moved to the evidence of the affair. This is where Sarah Webb's testimony becomes crucial. We have your phone records showing the affair. We have hotel receipts, restaurant bills, your medical documentation about the vasectomy. But Sarah provides independent corroboration. Text messages from Marcus's phone. His confession documented in her notarized statement. Credit card records from their joint account showing affair-related expenses. Rebecca's attorney will try to claim I'm biased or exaggerating. They can't claim Sarah Webb is biased. She has nothing to gain from lying. In fact, she's still married to Marcus, so testifying against him arguably hurts her own interests. That makes her testimony extremely credible. Patricia pulled out a timeline document. We've mapped the affair chronologically. First contact with Marcus 19 months ago. Escalating communication over the following months. First hotel visit 12 months ago. Pregnancy conception roughly 6 months ago. This isn't a one-time mistake. It's a sustained, intentional relationship conducted while she was married to you and he was married to Sarah. What about the twins? That's actually helpful for our case. Rebecca is pregnant with another man's children. She tried to pass them off as yours despite medical impossibility. That demonstrates willingness to deceive on a fundamental level. Judges care about parental honesty, especially in custody cases. When they're born, what happens? You will not be listed on the birth certificate. Marcus will be listed as father, either voluntarily or through paternity testing. You'll have no legal or financial obligation to those children. The divorce decree will explicitly state that you are not the father of any children born to Rebecca after your separation date. Patricia reviewed the character witness list. We have teachers, neighbors, your employer documenting your flexibility and commitment to the children. Mrs. Chen next door, who's seen you parenting daily. Tom and Jennifer, who've been your friends for years and can testify to your involvement. All of these people strengthen the narrative that you're the stable, present parent. What about Rebecca's witnesses? Her parents will testify, obviously. They'll paint her as a devoted mother unfairly maligned by a vindictive husband. But Linda and Robert haven't been meaningfully involved in daily childcare. They can't testify to routines, schedules, or hands-on parenting because they weren't there. Their testimony will be emotional and vague, not factual and specific. Anyone else she might call? Maybe co-workers, friends from her book club. But again, they can only testify to their limited observations. They haven't seen her daily parenting. They don't know the children's teachers or doctors or routines. Their testimony will be character-based. Rebecca seems nice. She's friendly at book club, which doesn't counter our documentation of actual parenting involvement. Patricia pulled out one final document, the guardian ad litem recommendation. The court will appoint someone to investigate and recommend custody arrangements based on the children's best interests. They'll interview you, Rebecca, the children if age appropriate, teachers, childcare providers. They'll visit both homes, review documentation, assess each parent's capacity and involvement. When does that happen? After we file, probably within 6 to 8 weeks. The GAL process takes 4 to 6 weeks. Then they submit their recommendation to the judge. Based on everything we have, I'd be shocked if they recommend anything other than primary custody to you. You're confident about this? I am. Look at the totality of evidence. Medical proof the twins aren't yours. 18 months of documented affair. Pattern of parental absence corroborated by multiple teachers. Financial deception. Your consistent, documented involvement. Sarah Webb's independent testimony. The only thing Rebecca has is emotional appeals and her parents' money. Her parents will hire an expensive attorney. Let them. Expensive doesn't mean effective when the facts are this clear. They'll file motions, drag things out, maybe try to attack your character or find inconsistencies. But they can't change the fundamental reality. You've been the primary parent, and you have extensive documentation proving it. Patricia organized all the documents back into folders. Here's the timeline. We file the petition next week. Rebecca gets served. She has 30 days to respond. Probably her attorney will request mediation. Courts usually require it. We'll attend in good faith, but we're not compromising on primary custody. What happens in mediation? We present our position, they present theirs. A neutral mediator tries to find common ground. Maybe we negotiate some details. Exact visitation schedule, holiday arrangements, decision-making authority for medical or educational issues. But if Rebecca won't agree to primary custody to you, mediation fails and we go to court. How long until trial? 4 to 6 months from filing, assuming mediation fails. The GAL investigation happens during that time. Discovery, depositions, motion practice. Then trial, probably 2 to 3 days given the complexity. Judge issues a ruling within 30 days after trial. I looked at the calendar. Filing next week meant trial around late spring, decision by early summer. The twins would be born in December, about 3 months from now. The divorce would still be pending. Rebecca will give birth while we're still married. Legally married, yes, but separated with documented proof the children aren't yours. The birth won't affect the divorce proceedings. It might actually help our case. Physical evidence of her affair and deception. We spent another hour going through specific arguments Rebecca's attorney might make and our responses. Patricia was thorough, anticipating every angle, preparing counter-arguments for every possible attack. One last thing, she said as we wrapped up. Stay consistent. Don't badmouth Rebecca to the kids. Don't interfere with her visitation once it's established. Document everything, but don't be vindictive. Courts reward the parent who takes the high road and prioritizes the children's well-being over personal grievances. I'm not trying to hurt her. I'm trying to protect my kids. I know. That's why we're going to win. I left Patricia's office with a folder full of documents and a clearer understanding of the path forward. The case wasn't just strong, it was overwhelming. Everything we'd documented, every witness we'd lined up, every piece of evidence we'd gathered, it all pointed to one conclusion. I should have primary custody because I'd been the primary parent. Rebecca could fight. Her parents could spend their money on lawyers and character assassination. But they couldn't change facts. They couldn't erase 18 months of documented absence. They couldn't explain away the affair, the pregnancy, the deception. The plan had crystallized from scattered evidence and confused hurt into a clear legal strategy. And for the first time since discovering Rebecca's betrayal, I felt something close to hope. Not hope that our family could be saved. That ship had sailed, but hope that my children would be protected, that they'd have stability and honesty, and a parent who prioritized them above everything else. Hope that truth and documentation would prevail over manipulation and expensive lawyers. Hope that doing the right thing, the hard, painful, honest thing, would ultimately be rewarded. I drove home to my children, to the evening routine of homework and dinner and bedtime stories, to the life we were building together, one honest day at a time. And I felt ready for whatever came next. The child psychologist, Dr. Lisa Martinez, had been clear in our consultation. Tell them together all at once, age-appropriate but honest. They already sensed something's wrong. Confirmation, even when painful, is better than the anxiety of not knowing. She'd recommended a children's book about divorce called Two Homes to help frame the conversation, especially for Emma and Cooper. I'd read it myself the night before. Simple illustrations, straightforward language, emphasis on love continuing even when parents live separately. It made me cry, which probably meant it would work. I chose a Sunday afternoon. The timing felt important. Not a school night when they'd be stressed about homework. Not right before bed when they'd have nightmares. Not in the morning when they'd spend the day distracted. Sunday afternoon gave them time to process before the week started. Gave me time to comfort them without rushing. I'd made their favorite lunch, mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, carrot sticks with ranch. Comfort food before a hard conversation. They'd eaten cheerfully, Emma telling stories about kindergarten, Josh describing a goal he'd almost scored in soccer, Maya helping Cooper cut his chicken into smaller pieces. After lunch, I asked them all to come sit in the living room. Something in my tone made them quiet immediately, that parental seriousness that children recognize instinctively. Maya sat on the couch, pulling Emma next to her. Josh chose the armchair, his body language already defensive. Cooper climbed into my lap when I sat in the other chair, sensing he needed to be close. I need to talk to you all about something important, I started. Something that's been happening with Mom and me, and how things are going to change. 4 pairs of eyes watched me. Maya's already filling with tears because she knew what was coming. Josh is angry before I'd even said it. Emma's confused and scared. Cooper's just trying to understand why everyone looked sad. Mom and Dad are going to live in separate houses from now on. We're getting divorced. The words landed like stones in water, sending ripples through the room. Emma immediately started crying. Josh's face turned red. Maya just nodded, confirming what she'd already suspected. Cooper looked up at me, processing. Is it because of us? Emma asked through tears. Did we do something bad? No, sweetie, no. This has nothing to do with you. All 4 of you are perfect exactly as you are. This is about grown-up problems between Mom and me. What kind of problems? Josh demanded. You were fine. Everything was fine. I'd prepared for this question, consulted with Dr. Martinez about how much to share. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people. Mom made some choices that hurt our family, and I can't stay married to her after those choices. But that doesn't change how much both of us love you. What choices? Maya asked quietly. She deserved the truth, or as much of it as I could give. Mom has been spending time with someone else, someone who isn't Dad, and she's going to have babies with that person. The new babies aren't your brother or sister because they're not my children. Silence. Emma looked confused. The concept was too abstract for 6. But Josh understood immediately, his face shifting from anger to hurt. Maya just closed her eyes. So Mom cheated on you, Josh said flatly. That's an adult word for it, but yes. And when people break trust like that, sometimes marriage can't continue. I hate her, Josh said, his voice cracking. I hate her for doing this to us. You don't have to hate her. You can be angry, and that's okay. But she's still your mom. And somewhere underneath all the complicated feelings, you still love her. No, I don't. I hate her. Emma was crying harder now. I don't want 2 houses. I want to stay here. I want everything to be normal. You will stay here, I promised. This is your home. Your rooms, your school, your friends, all of that stays the same. Mom will have her own place that you'll visit sometimes, but your main home is here with me. How often do we have to see Mom? Maya asked. That's still being worked out. Probably every other weekend, some holidays. But if you don't want to go sometimes, we can talk about that. Does Mom want to see us? Emma asked, the question breaking my heart. Of course she does. She loves you very much. This divorce is about the problems between Mom and me, not about her feelings for you. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Rebecca had been absent for so long, so focused on her affair. Did she really prioritize the children, or was I saying what they needed to hear? Cooper spoke for the first time. Is Mommy coming back? Not to live here, buddy, but you'll still see her. She'll still be your mommy, but I want her here. His voice was so small, so confused. At 4, he couldn't fully grasp the permanence of what I was describing. I held him closer. I know, Cooper. I know this is hard and confusing, but we're going to be okay. All of us together, we're going to figure this out. What about the new babies? Maya asked. Do we have to be related to them? They'll be your half-siblings, technically. They'll have the same mom as you. But you don't have to have any relationship with them if you don't want to. That's your choice when you're older and can decide. I don't want baby siblings, Emma said. I want everything to go back to how it was. I know, sweetie. I wish I could make that happen. But some things can't go backward. We can only go forward and make the best of what comes next. Josh stood up abruptly. Can I go to my room? In a minute. First, I want to make sure you all understand some important things. I waited until I had all their attention. You are loved, so loved. By me, by Mom, by so many people. This divorce doesn't change that. You didn't cause this. You can't fix it. Your job is just to be kids, to go to school, play with friends, do activities you enjoy. The grown-up problems are for grown-ups to handle. But it's happening to us too, Maya pointed out. We don't get to choose whether our family breaks apart. You're right. And that's not fair. I wish I could protect you from this hurt, but I can't. All I can do is promise to be here, to be honest with you, to help you through it. I pulled out the Two Homes book. I want to read this with you. It's about kids whose parents get divorced and how they learn that love doesn't depend on everyone living in the same house. We read it together. Me doing the voices, Emma curled against me, Cooper in my lap, Maya and Josh on either side. The book showed a child going between 2 homes, having 2 bedrooms, celebrating holidays in different places, all while being loved and secure. When we finished, Emma asked, Will Mom read us bedtime stories at her house? I'm sure she will if you want her to. Will you be lonely when we're at Mom's house? Maya asked. The perceptiveness caught me off guard, maybe a little. But I'll be okay. And I'll be so happy when you come home and tell me about your time with her. Josh hadn't said anything else, just sat rigidly beside me. I put my hand on his shoulder. Hey, talk to me. There's nothing to say. Mom wrecked everything, and now we have to pretend it's okay. You don't have to pretend anything. You can be angry. You can be sad. You can feel however you feel. Good, because I'm angry. Really angry. That's fair. That's really fair. We sat together for a long time after that, not talking much, just being in the same space, processing the same grief. Eventually, Emma asked if we could watch a movie, and I put on one of their favorites, something light and distracting that required no emotional investment. During the movie, Maya pulled out a notebook and started writing. I recognized it as the journal I'd accidentally discovered weeks ago. She caught me watching and said quietly, I'm writing how I feel. Dr. Martinez said that helps. That's really smart. I'm proud of you for taking care of yourself. I'm trying to take care of them too. She gestured at Emma and Cooper, already absorbed in the movie. They're little. They don't understand everything yet. That's kind of you. But remember what I said, you don't have to be the parent. That's my job, I know, but I'm the oldest. They looked to me. I saw so much of myself in her. That need to fix things, to protect people, to shoulder burdens that shouldn't be hers. Just don't forget to be 11 sometimes, okay? To be a kid with kid problems, not a little adult with adult worries. She nodded but didn't stop writing. When I looked later, she'd decorated the page with hearts and written, We're still a family, just different now. That night, bedtime was harder than usual. Emma had a nightmare and came into my room at 2 a.m. Cooper woke up crying for his mom. Josh's light was on at midnight when I checked. He was just lying there staring at the ceiling. Maya's door was closed, but I could see light underneath. I knocked softly. Come in. She was sitting on her bed with her laptop, looking at something. When I got closer, I saw it was the last family photo we'd taken. All 6 of us at Christmas, matching sweaters, artificial smiles. You okay? I asked. I was looking for the last time we were actually happy. Like, really happy, not fake happy. She scrolled back through photos, but I can't find it. Even in the older pictures, now that I know what was happening, I can see Mom wasn't really there. She was looking at her phone in the background, or she was there physically, but her face was blank. I sat beside her. I'm sorry you're noticing those things now. I wish I'd noticed before. Maybe I could have said something. Maya, no, this is not your responsibility. You couldn't have changed anything. But I saw her leaving all the time. I saw her on her phone constantly. I wrote about it in my journal. I knew something was wrong. And you were a kid observing your mother's behavior. That doesn't make you responsible for fixing it. I closed the laptop gently. I need you to hear this. None of this is your fault. You couldn't have prevented it. You did nothing wrong. She leaned against me, and I felt her shoulders shake with silent crying. I hate that everything's different now. I know. I hate it too. Will we ever be okay again? Like actually okay? Yes, it won't be the same okay we had before, but we'll find a new okay. It'll take time, and some days will be harder than others, but we'll get there. She fell asleep eventually, and I carried her to bed like I used to when she was small. All 4 of my children asleep under our roof, processing the hardest news of their young lives. I sat in the living room afterward, exhausted, but also oddly relieved. The conversation I'd been dreading was done. They knew the truth, age-appropriately presented but honest. No more pretending, no more half-truths. The book was still on the coffee table. 2 homes. I picked it up and reread the ending. Love doesn't live in houses. It lives in hearts, and hearts can be in 2 places at once. My children's hearts would learn to hold space for both their parents, even if those parents couldn't hold space for each other. They'd adapt because children are remarkably resilient. They'd hurt, yes, but they'd also heal, and I'd be there for every moment of that journey. The hard days and the easier ones, the anger and the eventual acceptance, the questions that would arise for years to come, because that's what being a parent meant. Not protecting them from all pain, that was impossible, but standing beside them through the pain, holding them when they cried, answering their questions honestly, and showing them that life continues even when everything changes. They'd be okay. We'd all be okay. Eventually. The divorce papers were served to Rebecca at her parents' house on a Tuesday morning. I knew because Patricia called me at 10:47 a.m. to confirm service was complete. By 11:15 my phone was ringing. I didn't answer. Patricia had been clear. No direct communication without documentation. Everything through attorneys or in writing. I let it go to voicemail and returned to the code I'd been reviewing for work. The voicemail notification appeared. Then another. And another. By noon, I had 6 missed calls from Rebecca and 3 from her mother. I listened to the first voicemail. Rebecca's voice, high-pitched and hysterical. How could you do this? How could you actually file for divorce while I'm pregnant? Do you have any idea how cruel this is? Call me back. We need to talk. We need to fix this before it's too late. The second, Daniel, please. I'm begging you. Don't do this. Think about our children. Think about our family. I made a mistake, but we can work through it. Please just call me back. The third, angrier. You're abandoning me when I'm at my most vulnerable. I'm carrying twins, I'm terrified, and you're serving me with legal papers like I'm nothing to you. After 12 years, this is what I mean to you. Nothing? I saved all the voicemails and forwarded them to Patricia. Document everything, she'd said. So I did. The calls continued throughout the day. I stopped listening to the voicemails, just saved them automatically. By 5 p.m., I had 14 missed calls from Rebecca, 5 from Linda, 2 from Robert. Then the texts started. Please talk to me. I love you. We can fix this. Think about Maya and Josh and Emma and Cooper. They need their family intact. You're being so cruel, so heartless. I never thought you could be this vindictive. The twins are innocent in this. How can you punish them? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please give me another chance. Each message was a variation on the same themes. My cruelty, her vulnerability, the children's needs, appeals for one more chance. None of them acknowledged the actual reason for the divorce. None took real responsibility beyond vague admissions of mistakes. I didn't respond to any of them. Every text got screenshot and saved to the growing folder of documentation. Around 8 p.m., after the kids were in bed, there was pounding on the front door, loud, insistent, desperate. I looked through the peephole and saw Rebecca, her face blotchy from crying, still in pajamas. I didn't open the door. Instead, I texted her, "Go home, Rebecca." We're not having this conversation. More pounding.
Let me in.
I need to talk to you. This is my house, too. You chose to leave. The house is mine per the custody agreement. Go back to your parents' house. I want to see my children. It's 8 p.m. They're in bed. You can arrange visitation through your attorney. They're my children. You can't keep them from me. I'm not keeping them from you. You're welcome to arrange appropriate visitation, but showing up at 8 p.m. when they're asleep is not appropriate. The pounding continued. Emma called out from upstairs. Daddy? What's that noise? It's okay, sweetie. Go back to bed. I texted Rebecca again. You're scaring the children. Leave now or I'm calling the police. You wouldn't dare. Try me. The pounding stopped. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there, crying, looking at the house like it was a fortress keeping her out. Eventually, she walked back to her car and drove away. I documented the incident, time, duration, her texts, my responses. Sent it all to Patricia. Her reply came quickly. Perfect handling. You stayed calm, documented everything, offered appropriate alternative, visitation through attorney. If this continues, we can get a restraining order. The next morning, I woke to 17 new text messages sent between 1 and 3 a.m. I can't sleep. I can't stop thinking about how you're destroying our family. Do you even care that I'm lying here alone, pregnant with twins, terrified? Marcus won't return my calls. You won't talk to me. I have no one. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To isolate me completely? I gave you 12 years of my life. 4 children. And this is how you repay me? You're going to regret this. You're going to realize what you lost. I hope you're happy with yourself. The emotional arc was clear, cycling from pleading to anger to victimhood to threats and back to pleading. Classic manipulation tactics that might have worked on me months ago, but I'd learned to recognize the patterns. The gaslighting, the deflection, the rewriting of history to make herself the wronged party. I'd lived with these tactics for so long that I'd normalized them, but seeing them in text form made them obvious. At no point did she say, I'm sorry for the affair. I'm sorry for lying to you for 18 months. I'm sorry for trying to pass off another man's children as yours. It was all about her pain, her vulnerability, her needs, as if my feelings and the children's well-being were irrelevant. The voicemail from 2:47 a.m. was particularly revealing. Her voice was thick, slurred. She'd been drinking. You think you're so perfect, so moral. But you were never really there, Daniel. Always working, always on your computer, never making me feel special. I was lonely. I was dying inside, and you didn't even notice. So yeah, I found someone who saw me, who made me feel alive. And if that makes me a terrible person in your eyes, fine. But you're not innocent in this. You drove me to it. I listened to it twice, not with anger, but with a kind of analytical detachment. This was Rebecca's narrative. I had failed her somehow, driven her to infidelity through my inadequacies. Never mind that I'd been working to support our family. Never mind that I'd been present for our children while she was at hotels with Marcus. Never mind that if she felt lonely, she could have said something, suggested counseling, worked on the marriage instead of destroying it. In her version of events, I was the villain and she was the victim forced into an affair by my emotional neglect. I forwarded the voicemail to Patricia with a note, particularly revealing. She's now claiming I drove her to the affair through neglect. Patricia's response, let her build that narrative. It won't hold up against documentation of your parental involvement and her absences. She's emotional and lashing out. Stay calm and don't engage. Over the following days, the communication continued. Calls, texts, voicemails, each one a variation on familiar themes. Linda joined the campaign, leaving messages about how I was being unreasonable, how family should forgive, how the children were crying for their mother. That last part bothered me enough to check with the kids. Has anyone been crying for Mom? I asked Maya privately. Emma asks about her sometimes. Cooper doesn't really understand. Josh is still angry. I'm fine. She paused. Grandma called my cell phone yesterday. She said Mom is devastated and we should call her. Did you? No, I don't know what to say to her. She lied to us. She wrecked our family. What am I supposed to say? Hey, Mom, sorry your affair had consequences. I probably should have discouraged the sarcasm, but I couldn't argue with the underlying truth. You don't have to call anyone you're not ready to talk to. That's your choice. Grandma made it sound like it was our responsibility to make Mom feel better. It's not. You're the children. Your job is to process your own feelings, not manage hers. The breakthrough, or breakdown depending on perspective, came 11 days after service. A voicemail at 11 p.m. Rebecca sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. You're right. Okay, you're right about everything. I had an affair. I got pregnant by Marcus. I lied to you about it. I lied to myself about it. I thought I could make it work somehow. Thought I could have both lives, and now I have nothing. Marcus won't leave his wife. You're divorcing me. My children look at me like I'm a stranger. And I'm going to be a single mother of twins with no support and no plan. She took a shaky breath. I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But please, Daniel, please don't take my children from me. I'm a mess and I made horrible choices, but they're my babies. Maya and Josh and Emma and Cooper, they're my whole world even if I did a terrible job of showing it. Please don't punish them by keeping them from me. More sobbing, almost incoherent. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For hurting you. For destroying what we had. For being selfish and stupid and cruel. You deserved better. The kids deserved better. I just wish I could go back and make different choices. The voicemail ended with her crying. No goodbye. Just the sound of her pain transmitted through digital signals to my phone. I sat with it for a long time. This was the closest she'd come to taking real responsibility, to acknowledging the specific harms she'd caused. Part of me felt vindicated. She'd finally admitted the truth. Part of me felt sad. This was the woman I'd loved for 12 years, broken by consequences of her own making. But mostly, I felt tired. Tired of the drama, the emotional manipulation, the constant communication trying to make me doubt my decisions. Even this confession, this apparent breakthrough, felt performative somehow, like she was trying yet another tactic after the others had failed. I forwarded the voicemail to Patricia anyway. Her response, interesting. She's finally admitting the affair and the deception. This helps us. It's essentially a recorded confession. Keep not responding. If she's genuinely sorry, she'll prove it through actions, not words. I didn't respond to the voicemail. Or to the 3 that came after it, cycling back to anger and accusation when her confession didn't produce the reconciliation she'd hoped for. I poured my heart out to you and you can't even respond? You really are heartless? Fine. If that's how you want to play it, we'll do this the hard way. My attorney says we have grounds to fight for primary custody. You won't win, Daniel. My parents have resources you don't. We'll make you look like the bad guy here. Empty threats from someone grasping at control she'd already lost. I documented everything and went about my life. Working, parenting, managing the household routine that was increasingly feeling normal without her. The breakdown I'd witnessed wasn't my problem to fix. Rebecca had made choices, and now she was living with the consequences. That she found those consequences painful didn't obligate me to rescue her. I'd spent 12 years trying to make her happy, and she'd repaid that effort with lies and betrayal. Now my obligation was to my children and myself, to building a life based on honesty, not managing Rebecca's emotional crises. She'd have to find her own way through this, just like I was finding mine. And if that made me heartless in her eyes, I could live with that judgment. Better to be heartless than to be trapped in her web of manipulation for one more day. Word spreads quickly in suburban neighborhoods, especially when children are involved. Within 2 weeks of Rebecca moving out, our situation had become common knowledge among the school parents, neighbors, and wider community. I hadn't announced anything publicly, but kids talk, teachers whisper, and suddenly everyone seemed to know that the foster family was falling apart. The responses varied wildly. Some people pulled away immediately, uncomfortable with the messiness of divorce, unsure how to navigate the social awkwardness. Couples we'd done dinner parties with suddenly had scheduling conflicts whenever I suggested getting together. A few parents at school drop-off would actively avoid eye contact, hurrying their children along rather than making small talk like before. I understood it. Divorce made people uncomfortable. It reminded them that their own marriages weren't guaranteed, that bad things could happen to seemingly stable families. Easier to maintain distance than confront that anxiety. But others stepped up in ways that surprised and humbled me. Tom and Jennifer, our closest couple friends, called the day after word got out. "We're taking you to dinner Friday," Jennifer said firmly. "The kids can have a sleepover at our place. You're going to eat good food, drink better wine, and remember you have people who care about you. You don't have to." "We're not asking. We're telling." 7 o'clock. Wear something other than dad jeans. That Friday, they picked me up and took me to a nice Italian place downtown. For 3 hours, I wasn't a divorcing father or a betrayed husband. I was just Daniel, talking to friends who'd known me for years and chose to stand beside me. "Rebecca's version of events is circulating," Tom said carefully. "People are hearing that you're being vindictive, keeping the kids from her, filing for divorce while she's pregnant and vulnerable. We know it's not true. We've seen how present you've been, how absent she's been. But you should know what's being said. Some people believe her narrative. Let them, I said, surprised by my own lack of concern. The people who matter know the truth. The people who believe her without asking my side probably weren't real friends anyway. Jennifer squeezed my hand. That's a healthy perspective. And for what it's worth, most people see through it. Teachers especially. They know who shows up. The neighborhood response was equally divided. Mrs. Chen next door, who'd watched our family for years, became an unofficial grandmother to my children. She'd appear with homemade dumplings, offer to watch the kids when I had evening work calls, give Maya advice about middle school drama. She never asked prying questions, just provided steady, practical support. My husband and I divorced when our daughter was young. She told me one afternoon while the kids played in her yard. People judged. People took sides. But none of that mattered as much as being there for her. You're doing the right thing. Other neighbors were less supportive. The Hendersons, 2 houses down, friends with Rebecca's parents, started giving me cold looks when I mowed the lawn. I heard through the grapevine that they'd told others I was cruel and unforgiving, that I should have worked harder to save the marriage. At the school, the parent community split along predictable lines. The mothers who'd been in book club with Rebecca tended to support her narrative. Marriage is hard, one of them said when I picked up Emma one afternoon. But surely divorce is harder on the children than working through problems. I smiled tightly and didn't engage. These women didn't know about the affair, the lies, the 18 months of deception. They saw a pregnant woman being divorced and made assumptions about who was at fault. But the parents I'd actually connected with through school involvement, the ones who'd served on PTA committees with me, coached alongside me at soccer, volunteered for field trips, those people rallied. Tyler's mom, whose own divorce I'd learned about, organized a meal train. You're juggling work and 4 kids and legal proceedings, she said. Nobody should have to cook dinner through all that. For 3 weeks, different families dropped off meals, casseroles, lasagnas, soups, always with enough for leftovers. Each delivery came with a note. Thinking of you, or you've got this, or simply, here for you. Josh's soccer coach, Mr. Rodriguez, pulled me aside after practice. How's he handling everything? Angry, withdrawn, his grades are slipping. I've noticed. He's rougher on the field, taking unnecessary risks. I'll keep an eye on him, maybe give him some extra attention. Sometimes kids open up to coaches when they won't talk to parents. I'd appreciate that. He needs male role models right now. He's got you. But yeah, I'll be there too. Emma's best friend Lily's parents invited her for a weekend sleepover, then texted me. We'd like to have Emma over regularly if that helps. Lily loves having her, and we know you could use the support. No questions asked. Standing invitation. The gestures accumulated. Small kindnesses from people who saw what was really happening and chose to help rather than judge. A neighbor who mowed my lawn when I was overwhelmed with work. A colleague who covered a meeting so I could attend Maya's parent-teacher conference. The mom at daycare drop-off who stopped me to say, I don't know your situation, but I see you here every morning with all 4 kids, and that's impressive. Whatever you're dealing with, you're handling it well. Those affirmations mattered more than I'd expected. When Rebecca's narrative painted me as the villain, hearing from people who'd witnessed my actual parenting provided necessary perspective. The school community became particularly important. Mrs. Patterson, Josh's teacher, created an informal support system with other teachers. They'd check in with each of my kids regularly, provide extra grace on deadlines when needed, keep me updated on any concerns. Mr. Chen, Maya's teacher, started a lunchtime group for students dealing with family transitions, giving Maya a space to process with peers who understood. The school staff are incredible, I told Tom one evening. They're not just teaching my kids, they're actively supporting them through this. That's what good teachers do. They see the whole child, not just the student. Even at work, support appeared unexpectedly. My manager called me into his office 3 weeks after Rebecca moved out. I'd been bracing for criticism about distraction or reduced productivity. Instead, he said, HR mentioned you're going through a divorce. I wanted you to know we're flexible with your schedule. Work from home when you need to. Take time for legal appointments or kid stuff. Your work is still excellent. We just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself too. I appreciate that. I went through a divorce 8 years ago. 2 kids, messy custody battle. I know how consuming it is. So use whatever resources you need. EAP counseling, flexible hours, whatever helps. The support from employers, neighbors, teachers, and friends created a safety net I hadn't known I needed. On the hardest days, when Josh was angry and acting out, when Emma had nightmares, when Maya looked exhausted from caring too much, when Cooper clung to me like I might disappear, I could text one of these people and get help. Not everyone understood. Some people maintained that I should have tried harder to save the marriage, that divorce was too drastic, that children needed intact families regardless of circumstances. Linda's book club friends, Rebecca's former colleagues, people who knew her version of events, but not the documented truth. They believed I was being unreasonable. I learned to let that go. Defending myself to people who'd already chosen sides was exhausting and ultimately pointless. The people who mattered had access to the real story. Everyone else could believe what they wanted. What struck me most was how support came from unexpected places while judgment came from expected ones. The couple we'd been closest to as a unit avoided us, uncomfortable with the split. But the parents I'd barely known beyond school drop-off showed up with meals and offers to help. The neighbor who'd chatted with Rebecca over the fence sided with her immediately, but Mrs. Chen, who'd quietly observed our family for years, provided unwavering support for me and the children. It was a sorting process, people revealing their true characters through their responses to our crisis. Some rose to the occasion with grace and compassion. Others retreated or attacked, protecting their own comfort or allegiances over truth. One Saturday afternoon, loading groceries into my car at the supermarket, I ran into one of Rebecca's book club friends. She approached me with visible discomfort. "Daniel, I just want you to know that Rebecca is really suffering. She's pregnant and alone and scared. Whatever happened between you two, surely you can find compassion for her situation." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "I understand you're her friend and you want to support her. That's admirable. But you don't have the full story, and I'm not going to litigate my divorce in a parking lot. I wish Rebecca well. I hope she finds stability. But I'm focused on my children and doing what's best for them. But keeping them from their mother, I'm not keeping them from anyone. Rebecca is welcome to arrange appropriate visitation through her attorney. But I won't be manipulated into sacrificing my children's well-being because people think I should be more forgiving." She looked uncomfortable, clearly not expecting direct pushback. "I just think, I know you care about Rebecca. But unless you have all the facts and you don't, maybe trust that I'm making informed decisions for my family. Have a good day." I loaded the last bag and drove away, leaving her standing there. It felt good to set boundaries, to refuse to accept others' judgments when they didn't have complete information. That evening, I created a schedule on the refrigerator, color-coded, organized, showing the village that was helping us survive. Monday, Tyler's mom does soccer carpool. Tuesday, Mrs. Chen covers after school until I'm home. Wednesday, meal delivery from the PTA meal train. Thursday, Dr. Martinez appointments for kids. Friday, Jennifer and Tom offer date night childcare if needed. Maya looked at it and smiled. We have a lot of people helping us. We do. We're lucky. I'm glad we're not doing this alone. Me too, sweetie. Me too. The community had fractured around us, some people falling away, others stepping closer. But the ones who remained, who showed up consistently with help and support and zero judgment, those people were building something stronger than what we'd lost. A real community based on truth rather than appearances. And that was worth more than any number of superficial friendships or social obligations that evaporated under pressure. We weren't alone. We were surrounded by people who saw us clearly and chose to help anyway. And that made all the difference. 2 months into our new reality, I stood in the kitchen at 6:30 a.m. staring at the color-coded calendar on the refrigerator, trying to remember if today was early dismissal for Emma's kindergarten or if that was Thursday. The mental load of single-parenting 4 children was substantial, but we were finding our rhythm. The calendar was my lifeline, a massive wall planner with different colors for each child. Blue for Josh's soccer practices and games, purple for Maya's band rehearsals and lessons, pink for Emma's dance class, green for Cooper's daycare schedule, red for my work obligations, yellow for medical appointments and therapy sessions. Every Sunday evening, I'd sit down with the kids and review the week ahead. "Okay, team, what do we have this week?" I'd become the kind of organized parent I'd never imagined being, out of necessity rather than natural inclination. Maya had her planner too, mimicking my system. "I have a band concert Thursday at 7. Science project due Friday. Book report due next Wednesday. Got it. We'll work on the science project this weekend. What's the book report on?" "The Giver. I'm almost done with it." Josh's schedule was simpler but no less demanding. "Soccer practice Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Game on Saturday morning. Perfect. Emma, your schedule?" "Dance on Tuesday." That's it. She was in 1st grade now, her schedule mercifully lighter than her older siblings. Cooper, at 4, just wanted to know when he'd be home with me. "No late work days this week, Daddy?" "Just one on Thursday. But Mrs. Chen will pick you up from daycare and bring you home. I'll be back by 6 for dinner. My work had been remarkably accommodating. My manager's own divorce experience made him understanding about my need for flexibility. I worked from home Mondays and Fridays, giving me more time for school drop-offs and pickups. On office days, I started early and left by 4:30 to handle the afternoon logistics. The company's EAP program provided free counseling sessions, which I'd been using monthly. It helped to talk to someone objective about the stress, the anger that still occasionally surfaced, the exhaustion of managing everything alone. Mornings were organized chaos. I'd wake at 5:30, shower and dress, then start the kid wake-up process at 6:15. Maya was self-sufficient. Alarm clock, morning routine, ready by 7:00 with minimal prompting. Josh needed more supervision. He'd get distracted, forget parts of his routine, need reminders to brush teeth and pack his backpack. Emma and Cooper required hands-on management. I'd wake them gently, help them pick out clothes, supervise teeth brushing, make sure hair was combed and shoes were on the right feet. Breakfast was assembly line efficient. Cereal, fruit, toast, milk. Nothing fancy, but nutritious and quick. Everyone ate while I packed lunches. Sandwiches made the night before. Carrot sticks, string cheese, cookies, water bottles. Maya, lunch is in your backpack. Josh, yours is on the counter. Emma, yours is the pink lunchbox. Cooper, yours is in your daycare bag. We'd pile into the car at 7:20. Elementary school drop-off first, then middle school, then daycare, then I'd head to work or back home depending on the day. The whole morning routine took 2 hours and felt like running a marathon. I'd hired help, a part-time nanny named Rachel who covered the gap between school ending and me getting home. She was a college student studying early childhood education, responsible and warm with the kids. She'd pick them up, bring them home, supervise homework and snacks, manage the chaos until I arrived. How much do I owe you this week? I'd ask every Friday. Same as always, $150 for 15 hours. It was money well spent. Rachel gave the kids stability and gave me peace of mind, knowing they weren't home alone or bouncing between various neighbors' houses. Mrs. Chen remained our backup for emergencies. Sick, kids who needed to come home from school, last-minute work obligations, the unpredictable disruptions that come with parenting. She never asked for payment, though I left fresh produce from the farmer's market on her doorstep regularly as thanks. Evenings followed their own routine, home by 6 or 6:15. Quick dinner, often from the meal train during those first months, later my own simple cooking. Spaghetti, tacos, grilled chicken and vegetables. Nothing elaborate, but better than fast food every night. Homework supervision while I cleaned the kitchen. Maya worked independently, but I'd check her work. Josh needed more oversight, sitting with him at the table, working through math problems, helping him focus when he got distracted. Emma's homework was minimal. Sight words, basic math worksheets, reading practice. Cooper didn't have homework, just the constant energy of a 4-year-old who needed attention and engagement. Bath time was coordinated like a military operation. Emma and Cooper together in the kids' bathroom, supervised but mostly independent now. Josh showered alone in the hall bathroom. Maya had her own bathroom and handled everything herself. By ATI, the younger two were in pajamas and ready for bedtime routines. Stories for Emma. We were working through the Magic Treehouse series. Songs for Cooper. He liked me to sing You Are My Sunshine while he fell asleep. Josh and Maya stayed up later. Josh usually until 8:30, then a brief check-in hug, lights out. Maya until 9 more on school nights, time she used for reading or talking to friends on her tablet. By 9:30, the house was quiet. I'd collapse on the couch, review the next day's schedule, respond to work emails I'd ignored during the parenting hours, maybe watch 30 minutes of something mindless on TV before falling asleep myself. Weekends were different, less structured but more intensive. Saturday mornings meant Josh's soccer games, which the other kids attended too, creating our family outing. Afterward, grocery shopping with all 4 children, a logistical challenge that required strategic planning and patience. Everyone stays where I can see you. Maya, keep an eye on Cooper. Josh, you're in charge of grabbing the cereal and bread. Emma, help me pick out fruit. They were remarkably good about it, probably because they'd adapted to our new normal and understood that cooperation made everything easier. Sunday mornings, I'd often take them to the park. Not for any particular purpose, just to let them run and play and burn energy. I'd sit on a bench watching them, feeling both exhausted and grateful. Meal planning happened Sunday afternoons. I'd involve the kids. What do you want for dinners this week? And create a simple menu. Monday, spaghetti. Tuesday, tacos. Wednesday, chicken stir-fry. Thursday, pizza night. Friday. Whatever was easy because we were all exhausted. The routine became familiar, almost comfortable. Wake, breakfast, school, work, pickup, homework, dinner, bath, bed, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was stable. The kids thrived on the predictability, but it was also exhausting in ways I hadn't anticipated. There was no break, no partner to tag team with when I was overwhelmed. Every decision, every responsibility, every moment of the day, all of it fell on me. Some nights, after everyone was asleep, I'd sit in the quiet house and feel the weight of it all. 4 children depending on me for everything. A demanding career that still required focus and excellence. Legal proceedings that consumed emotional energy even when I tried not to think about them. I started exercising again, early morning runs 3 times a week before the kids woke up, my only time alone. The physical exertion helped clear my mind, process stress, maintain some semblance of health amidst the chaos. Therapy sessions every other week gave me space to acknowledge the difficulty without burdening the children with adult anxieties. Dr. Martinez, the psychologist, was practical and supportive. "You're doing an incredible job," she'd say when I'd talk about feeling overwhelmed. "It doesn't feel incredible. It feels like barely surviving. That's normal. You're managing 4 children alone, working full-time, navigating a difficult divorce. If it felt easy, I'd be concerned you weren't processing the reality of the situation." The kids had their own therapy routines now. Maya every Tuesday at 4, Josh every Thursday at 4:30, Emma monthly, more focused on play therapy than talk. Cooper occasionally, though at 4, he mostly just needed consistency and reassurance. The therapy helped them process what I couldn't help them with: the grief of family dissolution, the anger at their mother, the fear about the future. Dr. Chen, the child psychologist, gave them tools I didn't have. Rebecca had started supervised visitation 6 weeks after moving out. Every other Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., at her parents' house with Linda present. The arrangement wasn't ideal, but it was what the temporary custody agreement specified until the divorce was finalized. The kids' responses to visits varied. Maya went dutifully but came home quiet and withdrawn. Josh refused the first 2 visits, then went reluctantly, always returning angry. Emma seemed fine during visits but had nightmares after. Cooper was the most adaptable, happy to see his mom but equally happy to come home. "How was Mom's house?" I'd ask after visits, keeping my tone neutral. "Fine," Maya would say. "Stupid," Josh would contribute. "We made cookies." Emma would report. "Mommy's belly is big." Cooper would observe. Rebecca was 7 months pregnant now, visibly showing, and the twins' impending arrival hung over everything. Marcus had apparently told Sarah he'd provide child support but wouldn't be actively involved, a decision that left Rebecca essentially a single mother of 2 infants with no partner. Support. Part of me felt sympathy for that situation. Part of me thought it was exactly what she'd chosen when she started the affair. Sympathy and accountability could coexist. What I wouldn't do was let her consequences become my responsibility. The twins weren't my children. Rebecca's struggle to manage them wouldn't pull me back into her life. The legal proceedings continued in the background. Motions filed, discovery requested, depositions scheduled. Patricia handled most of it, keeping me informed but not overwhelmed with details. "The guardian ad litem will visit next week," she told me in early November. "They'll want to see the house, talk to you and the kids, review your routines." I'd prepared for that, made sure the house was clean but lived in. The kids' rooms reflected their personalities. The refrigerator schedule was visible and organized. I wasn't trying to present a false picture of perfection, just the truth. We were managing well, the kids were cared for, stability existed here. The gal, a woman named Carol Stevens, spent 3 hours at our house. She toured the kids' rooms, looked at the family calendar, asked me detailed questions about schedules and routines and decision-making, walked me through a typical morning. I did. The wake-up routine, breakfast logistics, school preparation, all of it. And if Josh is sick, I work from home that day. If it's something more serious, Mrs. Chen next door is backup. I have flexible work arrangements specifically for situations like that. The children seem well adjusted given the circumstances. They're in therapy. We talk openly about feelings. I try to maintain consistency and honesty. She interviewed each child privately. I waited downstairs, nervous about what they might say, hoping they'd be honest about their experience. When Carol finished, she smiled at me. "You have a nice family here, Mr. Foster. The children clearly feel secure with you. Thank you. I'll be visiting Ms. Foster's residence next week for comparison. My report will be submitted to the court by the end of November." After she left, I felt cautiously optimistic. The house had passed inspection. The kids had apparently said positive things. We were demonstrating exactly what Patricia had predicted. Stable, involved parenting that prioritized the children's well-being. One evening in late November, after an especially exhausting day, I sat at the kitchen table with the calendar and a calculator running numbers. The financial reality of single parenting was substantial. Increased childcare costs, full household expenses on one income, legal fees accumulating. But we were making it work. The house payment was manageable. Bills were paid on time. The kids had what they needed. We weren't lavish, but we were secure. Maya came downstairs for water and found me with my head in my hands, briefly overwhelmed. "You okay, Dad?" I looked up and smiled. "Yeah, sweetie. Just tired. Lots to manage." She sat beside me. "We help though, right? Josh and Emma and Cooper and me? You help so much." "You're all amazing. Are we going to be okay? Like financially and everything?" The question surprised me. She was 11, too young to worry about finances, but of course she was thinking about it. Children sense stress even when we try to hide it. "We're going to be completely fine. I promise. We have enough money, a good house, jobs that work for us. It's just a lot of logistics to manage, but we're handling it well." "Good. I don't want you to be stressed. That's my job, to handle the stress so you don't have to. Your job is just to be 11. She smiled and went back upstairs, and I returned to the calendar, adding another color for December activities. Holiday programs, winter break, the upcoming trial date. We were moving forward, not always gracefully, not without exhaustion and occasional overwhelm, but consistently and steadily, building a new normal one scheduled day at a time. And somehow, against the odds and through sheer determination, we were making it work. The courthouse was everything I'd expected. Imposing stone facade, marble floors worn smooth by decades of footsteps, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look tired and washed out. I arrived early on a cold Monday morning in January, wearing my best suit, carrying a leather folder with copies of everything Patricia might need. Jennifer had taken all 4 children for the day. "You need to focus," she'd said firmly. "They'll have fun with us, and you'll have one less thing to worry about." I was grateful. The thought of them sitting in a courthouse hallway waiting to hear their family discussed in legal terms was unbearable. Patricia met me in the lobby at 8:30. "Ready?" "As ready as I'll be. Remember what we discussed. Stay calm, stick to facts. Don't let emotion take over, even if Rebecca's attorney tries to provoke you. The judge will see through theatrics. Substance matters more than performance." We passed through security and took the elevator to the 3rd-floor family court division. The hallway was filled with other families in various stages of dissolution, parents avoiding eye contact, children looking confused and scared, attorneys huddling with clients making last-minute preparations. Rebecca was already there with her attorney, a sharp-dressed man in his 50s named Richard Caldwell. Her parents flanked her on either side. She was 8 months pregnant now, the twins due in 3 weeks, her presence a visual reminder of everything that had brought us here. She looked at me across the hallway, her expression wounded and accusatory. I looked away, focusing on Patricia's last-minute reminders. Their strategy will be to paint you as unforgiving and vindictive. They'll emphasize Rebecca's pregnancy, make her seem vulnerable. They'll argue that keeping children from their mother is harmful. Counter all of that with facts, documented evidence of your involvement and her absence. At 9:01 we were called into the courtroom. Judge Margaret Peterson presided, a woman in her early 60s with gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every variation of family dysfunction imaginable. Her reputation was fair but no nonsense. She valued evidence over emotion, facts over narratives. The courtroom itself was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, a raised bench for the judge, tables for attorneys and their clients, a small gallery for observers where Rebecca's parents sat. Everything felt formal, serious, final. Judge Peterson reviewed the case file briefly. "This is Foster versus Foster divorce and custody proceedings. We're here to determine primary custody of 4 minor children. Maya, age 11, Joshua, age 9, Emma, age 6, and Cooper, age 4. Let's begin." Patricia stood. "Your Honor, we're seeking primary physical custody for Mr. Foster with standard visitation for Ms. Foster. The evidence will show that Mr. Foster has been the primary caregiver for the children, particularly over the past 18 months, and that their best interests are served by maintaining stability with him as the custodial parent." Richard Caldwell stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Foster is a devoted mother who's been unfairly vilified by her husband. While the marriage has ended, her bond with her children remains strong. We're requesting joint physical custody with equal time for both parents." Judge Peterson nodded. I've reviewed the guardian ad litem report, which recommends primary custody to Mr. Foster. Mr. Caldwell, you'll need to present compelling evidence to overcome that recommendation. Ms. Hendricks, present your case. Patricia methodically built her argument. She started with the timeline, documentation showing my consistent involvement over the past year, the calendar showing I'd handled 78% of hands-on parenting, drop-offs, pickups, homework supervision, medical appointments, school events. Your Honor, the evidence shows a clear pattern. Mr. Foster has been the engaged, present parent. He knows the children's teachers, their friends, their schedules, their needs. He's flexible at work to accommodate their activities. He's established therapeutic support for them during this difficult transition. She called her first witness, Mrs. Patterson, Josh's teacher. Mrs. Patterson testified about Josh's behavioral changes correlating with his mother's increasing absence, about the conferences she'd held with me to address concerns, about my responsive and consistent involvement. And Ms. Foster, Patricia asked, how often have you met with her regarding Joshua's progress? Never. In the 2 years Joshua has been in my class, she's never attended a parent-teacher conference or responded to emails about his academic or behavioral concerns. Mr. Chen testified next. Similar observations about Maya, then Emma's kindergarten teacher, then Cooper's daycare director. The pattern was undeniable. I was the parent they knew, the one who showed up, the one who responded when they had concerns. Caldwell's cross-examination tried to suggest I deliberately excluded Rebecca, that my work schedule was more flexible, so naturally I attended school events. But the teachers were clear. They'd invited both parents, sent notices to both email addresses. I'd responded. Rebecca hadn't. Patricia called Sarah Webb next. I watched Rebecca's face go pale as Sarah was sworn in. This was the testimony Rebecca had probably hoped would never happen. Independent corroboration from the other betrayed spouse. Sarah was calm, factual, devastating. She detailed Marcus's confession, the timeline of the affair, the text messages she'd found. She confirmed that Marcus was the biological father of Rebecca's twins, that he'd admitted the 18-month relationship, that he'd told Sarah he wanted to avoid legal responsibility for the children if possible. And how did you come to know Mr. Foster? Patricia asked. He contacted me after discovering the affair. He felt I had a right to know what my husband had been doing. His evidence helped me understand the truth of my own situation. Has Mr. Foster ever been inappropriate with you or suggested any relationship beyond two people dealing with similar circumstances? Never. He's been respectful, supportive, and entirely appropriate. We've maintained occasional contact to share information relevant to the legal proceedings. Nothing more. Caldwell tried to discredit Sarah's testimony, suggesting she was biased or motivated by revenge against Marcus. But Sarah held firm. She was still married to Marcus, so testifying actually hurt her own interests. She was simply telling the truth. Patricia introduced Dr. Martinez's report next. The child psychologist had evaluated all 4 children and documented their adjustment, their attachment patterns, their expressed preferences. The report was careful not to vilify Rebecca, but it clearly showed the children felt more secure and stable with me as their primary parent. Maya, age 11, expressed that while she loves both parents, she feels her father is more reliably present and responsive to her needs. Joshua, age 9, exhibited significant anger toward his mother regarding the circumstances of the separation and stated a strong preference for living primarily with his father. Emma and Cooper, being younger, didn't express clear preferences, but showed secure attachment to Mr. Foster and some anxiety about time with Ms. Foster. Finally, Patricia called me to testify. I'd been dreading this, having to talk about the most painful period of my life in front of a judge, attorneys, Rebecca, and her parents. But I'd prepared, and Patricia had coached me thoroughly. She walked me through my background, my career, my involvement with the children. I described our daily routines, how I'd adjusted my work schedule to be available, how I knew their teachers and friends and schedules. Mr. Foster, why are you seeking primary custody? Because I've been the primary parent for the past 18 months at minimum. I'm not trying to keep the children from their mother. She's welcome to have meaningful time with them, but they need stability, and that stability exists with me. I know their lives. I'm present for their needs. I prioritize them consistently. Tell me about the discovery of your wife's pregnancy. I recounted the announcement, the medical impossibility, the documentation of the affair. I kept emotion out of it, focusing on facts and timeline. Patricia introduced the medical documentation. Dr. Patterson's letter confirming my vasectomy was intact. Test results showing 0 sperm count. Expert testimony that spontaneous recanalization after 3 years was virtually impossible. So there's no question the twins Ms. Foster is carrying are not your biological children? No question whatsoever. Caldwell's cross-examination tried to paint me as cold and unforgiving. You didn't even attempt marriage counseling before filing for divorce? How do you counsel through 18 months of deception and pregnancy with another man's children? The foundation of our marriage was destroyed by choices Ms. Foster made repeatedly over an extended period. But surely you bear some responsibility for the marriage's problems. Perhaps you were emotionally unavailable, not meeting your wife's needs. If Rebecca felt neglected or unhappy, she could have communicated that. She could have suggested counseling. She could have done anything other than have an affair with her married supervisor for 18 months. I won't accept blame for her choices. You're keeping her children from her out of vindictiveness. I'm protecting my children by providing stability. Ms. Foster has supervised visitation every other weekend. I've never violated those agreements or interfered with her time with them. I'm not being vindictive. I'm being a responsible parent. Judge Peterson intervened. Mr. Caldwell, do you have questions about Mr. Foster's parenting capacity or just about his reaction to adultery? Your Honor, I'm establishing that Mr. Foster's motivations may not be purely about the children's welfare. The evidence suggests his motivations are exactly about the children's welfare. Move on or finish your cross-examination. Caldwell asked a few more questions but couldn't shake my testimony. I'd lived it. I knew every detail, and I'd documented everything. Then it was Rebecca's turn to testify. Caldwell walked her through her version of events, how she'd felt neglected in the marriage, how the affair was a mistake born of loneliness, how she deeply regretted her choices and wanted to rebuild her relationship with her children. She cried on the stand, talked about how painful it was to be separated from Maya and Josh and Emma and Cooper, how she loved them desperately and wanted more time with them, how the supervised visitation felt punitive and humiliating. I made mistakes, she said, crying. Terrible mistakes, but I'm still their mother. I still love them. I don't understand why I'm being punished when I'm trying so hard to make things right. It was a good performance, genuinely emotional, but Patricia's cross-examination cut through it. Ms. Foster, how many parent-teacher conferences have you attended in the past year? I don't remember exactly. The answer is 0. When was Maya's last band concert? I'm not sure of the date. You missed it. You've missed the last 3. What's Joshua's teacher's name? Mrs. Thompson? Mrs. Patterson. What time does Cooper's daycare close? Rebecca couldn't answer. Question after question exposing the gaps in her knowledge about her children's daily lives. Not because she was being unfairly tested, but because she hadn't been present enough to know. Ms. Foster, you claim you want more time with your children. Yet over the past 6 months of supervised visitation, you've canceled twice and shown up late 4 times. Why should the court believe you'll prioritize them going forward when you haven't prioritized them in the past? I've been dealing with a difficult pregnancy, a pregnancy that resulted from an 18-month affair with your married supervisor. A pregnancy you attempted to pass off as your husband's despite medical impossibility. Is that the kind of honesty and good judgment the court should reward with increased custody? Rebecca was crying harder now, but she had no good answers. The facts were the facts. Linda and Robert testified for Rebecca, painting her as a devoted mother unfairly maligned, but their testimony was vague and emotional, lacking specific examples or detailed knowledge of the children's lives. Patricia's cross-examination was brief. Mr. Henderson, when was the last time you attended one of your grandchildren's school events? I don't recall exactly. More than 2 years ago, according to school records. Mrs. Henderson, how often do you see the children? Well, with the divorce situation, before the separation, how often did you have them for visits or spend significant time with them? Holidays, birthdays, and so a few times a year. You're asking this court to consider your opinions about custody, but you haven't been substantially involved in the children's daily lives. Is that accurate? They had no rebuttal. Their support for Rebecca was parental loyalty, not evidence-based assessment of what was best for the children. The proceedings lasted 3 days. Witnesses, evidence, cross-examinations, legal arguments. By the end, I was exhausted but cautiously hopeful. We'd presented an overwhelming case. Documented involvement, third-party corroboration, evidence of Rebecca's affair and deception. The children's own expressed preferences. Judge Peterson took a week to issue her ruling. The wait was agonizing, but Patricia was confident. We did everything we could. The evidence is overwhelming. Unless she completely disregards the GAL recommendation and all testimony, you'll get primary custody. The ruling came via email on a Friday afternoon. I was at work when Patricia called. We won. Primary physical custody to you. Rebecca gets alternating weekends, Wednesday evening dinners, alternating holidays, 2 weeks in summer. No more supervised visitation. Judge Peterson determined it's no longer necessary. Child support minimal, basically covering extracurriculars. Asset division as we proposed. You keep the house, retirement accounts, 60-40 split. No alimony. I sat at my desk feeling relief wash over me. We won. You won. The children won. Justice was served based on evidence and what's best for those kids. I left work early and picked up the children myself, dismissing Rachel for the day. I gathered all 4 of them in the living room, the same place where I'd told them about the divorce months earlier. I have news about the custody case. The judge made her decision. 4 pairs of eyes watched me, anxious and hopeful. You're going to live here with me as your primary home. Mom will have you every other weekend and 1 evening a week. Holidays will alternate. But this, I gestured around our house, this is your home. This is where you'll be most of the time. Maya started crying with relief. Josh nodded, his expression satisfied. Emma looked confused but happy. Cooper just wanted to know if he could go play. Are we safe now? Maya asked. Yes, sweetie. We're safe. Everything's decided. We can move forward now. That evening, after the kids were in bed, I sat alone in the living room holding the official custody order. The judge's signature made it real, final, legitimate. Primary physical custody to Daniel Foster. The children would live primarily with me, visit their mother on a defined schedule, grow up in this house with me as their main parent. It wasn't how I'd imagined my life would turn out, but it was honest, stable, and built on truth rather than deception. We'd fought for this. We'd documented everything, presented evidence, told the truth, and the system, for all its flaws, had worked. The children were protected. I had legal authority to make decisions in their best interests. Rebecca had time with them but couldn't disrupt their stability. We'd won. Not because I'd destroyed Rebecca, but because I'd simply shown up consistently and loved my children well, and that was enough. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood in the kitchen on a Saturday morning watching my children move through their routines with an ease that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Maya was making scrambled eggs. Josh was setting the table without being asked. Emma was helping Cooper pour orange juice. The house felt alive in a way it hadn't when Rebecca lived here. Lighter, more honest, genuinely peaceful. Rebecca's twins had been born in late December. A boy and a girl she'd named Connor and Chloe. Marcus had signed the birth certificates as father, establishing legal paternity and child support obligations. From what Sarah told me in our occasional check-ins, he was minimally involved. Financial support, but little hands-on parenting. Rebecca was managing as a single mother with help from Linda and Robert. I felt sympathy for her situation, but it wasn't my responsibility to fix. The twins had a father. That he wasn't stepping up was between Rebecca, Marcus, and their own consciences. My obligation was to the 4 children sitting around my kitchen table, laughing over some joke Josh had made about Emma's messy hair. The visitation schedule had settled into predictable routine. Every other weekend, Wednesday evening dinners, alternating holidays. The kids went somewhat willingly now. The anger had softened over months of therapy and distance. They'd never have the relationship with Rebecca they might have had if she'd made different choices, but they were finding a way to coexist with the reality of who she was. Maya came back from visits quiet but no longer devastated. She'd learned to set boundaries, to not take on emotional responsibility for her mother's choices. At 12 now, she was becoming remarkably self-aware and emotionally intelligent. Mom asked if we wanted to meet the twins. She told me after one visit. What did you say? I said maybe eventually, but not yet. I'm not ready to pretend everything's normal when it's not. That's a reasonable boundary. I'm proud of you for knowing what you need. Josh, now 10, had moved from anger to a kind of wary acceptance. He went to visits because they were scheduled, not because he was excited about them. It's fine, he'd say when I asked how time with Rebecca went. Not good, not bad, just fine, adequate, sufficient. Emma, at 7, was the most forgiving. She'd bounce back from visits chattering about activities they'd done, cookies they'd baked, parks they'd visited. Her capacity for joy and her ability to live in the present moment were gifts I envied. Cooper, now 5, barely remembered the before times when both parents lived in the same house. This was his normal, living with Dad most of the time, visiting Mom sometimes. Occasionally seeing 2 babies who were technically his siblings but felt more like distant cousins. My career had stabilized and even flourished. The flexibility my employer had shown during the crisis had earned my loyalty and deepened my commitment. I'd received a promotion to senior architect 3 months ago, with a salary increase that made our financial situation even more secure. The children's college funds continued growing. Maya would start thinking about colleges in 5 years. I'd make sure she had options, that none of my children would be limited by money when pursuing their education and dreams. The house felt like ours now in a way it never had before. We'd redecorated Emma's room with her input, painted it purple, hung fairy lights, created a space that reflected her personality. Josh's room had new sports posters and a better desk set up for homework. Maya had reorganized her space to be more teenage appropriate. Cooper's room had grown with him. Toddler toys replaced by books and building blocks. I'd even done some updating to the common spaces. Repainted the living room, replaced old furniture, hung new photos. Pictures of the 5 of us, me and my 4 children. Without the ghost of the family we used to be haunting the frames, Mrs. Chen remained our adopted grandmother, appearing with dumplings and wisdom whenever we needed either. Tom and Jennifer stayed close friends, our bonds strengthened by having weathered crisis together. The community support that had emerged during the divorce had solidified into genuine relationships built on mutual care, rather than superficial social obligation. Dr. Martinez continued seeing the kids monthly, monitoring their adjustment and providing tools for processing complex emotions. She'd told me recently that they were doing remarkably well, resilient, adapting, finding their footing in the new family structure. You've given them stability and honesty, she said during one of our parent consultations. Those are the foundations children need to thrive. The rest they're figuring out day by day. Sarah Webb and I maintained occasional contact, texts checking in, coffee meetups every few months. She'd stayed with Marcus, a decision I still didn't fully understand but respected. They were in intensive marriage counseling, trying to rebuild trust after his betrayal. I wished her well but kept healthy distance. Our connection was based on shared trauma, and as we both healed, the need for that connection naturally diminished. "How are you doing, really?" she asked during our last coffee meeting in May. "Good. Actually good. Not just pretending to be good. The kids are thriving. Work is solid. I'm sleeping through the night again. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm genuinely okay. Are you dating?" The question caught me off guard. No, hasn't even occurred to me, honestly. It will eventually. When you're ready. You're a good man, Daniel. Some woman will be lucky to find you. Maybe, but right now, my focus is on the kids. They need to know they're my priority, that I'm not replacing their mother or creating new upheaval in their lives. That's wise. But don't close yourself off forever. You deserve happiness too. I'd thought about that conversation several times since. Did I deserve happiness? Or more accurately, did I trust myself to recognize healthy relationships after being fooled so completely by Rebecca's deception? The questions felt too large to answer, so I set them aside. Someday, maybe. But not yet. One evening in June, Maya found me in my office working on a project. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you hate Mom?" I considered the question carefully. No, I don't hate her. I'm angry about the choices she made. I'm disappointed in how she handled things. But hate takes energy I'd rather spend on you 4 and on building our life. She's your mother and you love her. I wouldn't want you to feel caught between hating her and loving me. I don't love her the same way I used to. I love the idea of the mom I thought she was. But the real her, the one who lied and cheated and wrecked our family, I don't know how to love that person. That's really honest and really mature. You don't have to figure it out right now. Maybe you'll find a way to love her as a flawed person, separate from the idealized mother you imagined. Maybe you won't. Either way is okay. Do you think you'll ever trust anyone again? Like enough to get married? I don't know, sweetie. Trust is hard after it's been broken this badly. But I hope so. I don't want to be closed off forever because of what one person did. She nodded. I think you'd be a good husband for someone who deserves you. Mom didn't deserve you. She took you for granted. The maturity in her observation both impressed me and made me sad. 12-year-olds shouldn't have to see their parents so clearly, to understand adult failures so comprehensively. But she did, and I couldn't unteach her those lessons. Thank you. Maya, that means a lot. She hugged me and went back upstairs, and I returned to my work, thinking about trust and second chances and the future that stretched ahead of us. I'd started writing letters to each of my children, sealed documents explaining everything that had happened from my perspective, preserved for when they were adults and could understand with mature perspective. Not to vilify Rebecca or justify myself, but to give them the complete truth about the choices that shaped their childhoods. The letters were tucked away in my safe deposit box at the bank, along with all the legal documents and evidence from the divorce. Someday, when they were 25 or 30, I'd give them access to everything. Let them read the story of their family's dissolution from the adult who'd tried to protect them while staying honest. Dear Maya, one letter began. By the time you read this, you'll be an adult with perspective I hope you never needed to develop as a child. I want you to understand what happened when you were 11 and our family changed forever. Each letter was tailored to the child, age appropriate even though they wouldn't read them for years, explaining my choices, my pain, my hope for their futures, giving them a record of the truth so they'd never have to wonder or rely on fragmentary memories. On a warm July evening, we had a family meeting in the backyard. I'd set up the fire pit and we roasted marshmallows while the sun set, the kids sticky and happy and wonderfully present. I want to talk about something, I said when we'd settled into chairs around the fire. It's been about a year since Mom moved out. We've been through a lot. Divorce, custody hearings, adjusting to new routines. I want to check in with each of you about how you're doing. Maya spoke first. I'm okay. Better than I was. I still get sad sometimes, but mostly I'm just glad we have stability now. Josh, I don't really think about it much anymore. This is just how things are. Emma, I like having you as my main parent. You're here more. Cooper, can I have another marshmallow? I smiled. Yes, buddy. You can have another marshmallow. They were okay. Not perfect, not unmarked by what they'd experienced, but genuinely okay. Resilient, adapting, growing. I want you to know I'm proud of all of you, I said. You've handled something really difficult with grace and courage. You've stayed kind even when you had reasons to be bitter. You've kept loving even when love got complicated. That takes strength. We learned it from you, Maya said simply. No, you have your own strength. I've just been here to witness it. Later that night, after everyone was asleep, I sat in the backyard alone looking at the stars. A year ago, I'd been discovering phone records and hotel receipts, my world crumbling beneath my feet. I'd been terrified of the future, uncertain whether I could handle single parenthood, worried about the damage to my children, but we'd survived. More than survived, we'd built something good from the rubble of what had been destroyed. A family that was smaller but more honest. A home that felt peaceful rather than performative. Relationships based on truth rather than comfortable lies. I thought about Rebecca, probably struggling with 2 infants right now, dealing with consequences she'd never fully anticipated. I didn't wish her harm, but I didn't feel responsible for rescuing her either. She'd made choices. She was living with them. That was how accountability worked. I thought about Marcus, presumably still married to Sarah, paying child support but avoiding hands-on involvement with the children he'd created. Another man who'd thought he could have everything without consequences, learning too late that actions matter. And I thought about myself, the man I'd been a year ago who'd believed in perfect families and unconditional trust, transformed into someone more skeptical but also more resilient. I'd learned I was stronger than I'd known. I'd learned I could parent 4 children alone and do it well. I'd learned that the truth, even when devastating, was better than comfortable lies. The divorce had taken something from me. The naive belief that love conquered all, that commitment meant something to everyone. But it had also given me something, absolute certainty about what mattered most, my children, their well-being, building a life that honored truth even when truth was painful. I pulled out my phone and looked at my last text exchange with Sarah. Her, how are you doing? Me, good, really good. The kids are thriving. I'm sleeping again. We're building something stable. Her, I'm glad. You deserve peace after everything. Me. So do you. How's counseling going? Her, it's work, hard work, but I'm committed to trying. Me, I hope it works out however you need it to. She and I were on different paths now. She was trying to rebuild. I was building something entirely new. Neither path was wrong, just different responses to similar betrayals. I went inside, checked on each sleeping child, and went to bed in the room that was now just mine. No more sharing space with someone I couldn't trust. No more lying awake wondering where my spouse really was. Just quiet, honest solitude, 6 months since the divorce, a year since discovering the affair. And finally, I felt like I could breathe fully. The story that had begun with impossible pregnancy and devastating betrayal had evolved into something I'd never expected. A life that was smaller but more authentic, harder but more rewarding, different but ultimately better than the illusion I'd been living. I'd chosen my children over my marriage. I'd chosen truth over comfortable lies. I'd chosen the hard, honest path over the easy, enabling one. And in making those choices, I'd found something I didn't know I was looking for. The most genuine version of myself I'd ever been. A father who showed up. A man who faced hard truths. A person who prioritized what mattered most even when it cost everything else. The children were safe. The family was honest. The future was unwritten but full of possibility. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. If you faced impossible choices between the family you thought you had and the truth you couldn't ignore, know this: you're stronger than you believe. Your children are more resilient than you fear. And choosing honesty over comfort, even when it shatters everything, is always the right choice. Not because it's easy. It's not. But because building a life on truth creates a foundation that can support real growth, genuine connection, and authentic love. I found out my wife was pregnant with twins that couldn't be mine. I took our 4 children and left. And in doing so, I gave them the most important gift I could offer. A parent who chose their well-being over everything else, every single time. That's not revenge. That's not vindictiveness. That's just love, expressed through the hardest choices and the most honest actions. And if you're in a similar situation, I hope you find the courage to make those choices too. Your children deserve nothing less than the whole truth and a parent brave enough to live it. Subscribe if this story resonated with you. Share your own journey in the comments. Your experience matters and you're not alone. Together we can build a community of people who chose honesty over convenience, truth over comfort, and our children's well-being over everything else.